Okay.
Okay.
Yep, we're live right now. And as we usually do, we look for around 30 seconds to 1 minute for people to start logging on and tuning in. People are tuning in right now. People are tuning in on YouTube. Salute to those of you who are tuning in on YouTube. I'm sure they'll know the Ledger audience and Sankofa
Peace,
Radio
peace.
is going to be all tapped in. We'll just give it a minute or two to let people get comfortable, to get this information that will be kinetic always and how people can move forward and solve their problems. We're into solving problems over here, so um, we want to make sure that people get the ability to tune in so that they can literally solve their problems, whether it be health or wealth. We're happy to do these shows every week for people. How the brothers feeling today?
Peace, my brother.
You feeling good?
Feeling great.
Yeah, man, you sound like you're good, man. Must have had a great weekend.
Yeah,
Huh?
brother
You must have
Redfield,
had a great weekend.
he must have had a great weekend. I hear it in his voice.
I can hear it, right? You can hear it too?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about it, my brother.
We still in New York, just
Okay,
enjoying everything New York has to offer.
okay. You gonna be in New
Um,
York this weekend?
I'm sorry, say it again.
You gonna be in New York this weekend?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay,
Inshallah, I'll still be here.
okay,
But yeah, yeah, yeah. And then to top it all off, my little FIFA journey ended with a W.
okay,
So that was a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Well, it felt like we woke up on a new timeline. So yeah.
okay. Nice, very nice, man. Yeah, I think I'll be in New York this weekend. Coming,
Oh no, that's dope.
booking tickets. Yeah, check out a few reggae. Check out a particular reggae show. Just feel like doing it. I'm
That's
not planning on doing any lectures, no talking, no nothing. I'm just
you
gonna just
feel
take
you
in
just
the vibes.
go soak it up. Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Hey,
I
brother,
like
you ought to do what my brother Jay Z did, man. Come on back strong with some poetry. Do one for the family, man. You ever think?
actually, I'm working on an album.
Okay,
It's being produced right now. What I did was I blended. So what I did was I created an art form. We'll get started with the health, y'all, as people log in. But as Brother Anthony brought it up, um, so what I used to do professionally for a decade was spoken word poetry. I think that's how you met me, Anthony.
yeah, man. I used to love that stuff, brother.
Yeah, so I was doing spoken word poetry, and I was doing that for some time, and I wanted to add music to it. And so what I did was I created this new art form called spoken dub. So in reggae music, you have a thing called dub poetry, and some of the luminaries in that art form called dub poetry is people like Linton Kwesi Johnson out of England and Mutu Baruka out of Jamaica. You also had people like Oku Onora, Mikey Smith. And the difference between dub poetry and spoken dub is that the elements are a little bit different. There are some commonalities. So um, dub poetry is like kind of like storytelling, right? And it's very laid back and calm. Um, like Mutabruka has a famous one that goes, "It no good if you
Yeah.
stay in a white man country too long." That type of
Oh, yeah.
vibe. Or you have Linton Kwesi Johnson with the famous dub poetry track called "Sonny's Letter,"
Mhm.
right? You'd have Mikey Smith. You have there are these luminaries within this field of dub poetry. And essentially, what dub poetry is that it's storytelling largely in patois with reggae under it, right? So you'd have reggae music, roots reggae under it, with basically storytelling going on.
Right.
And so my poetry is not necessarily storytelling, and it's not laid back. So it's a lot more kinetic. It's more aggressive. It's more trance-like poetry. So what I did was I took three traditions. I took the continental African spoken word tradition, which is a tradition that is held by what they call Jolly Kundas, right? So the French call it griots. And what it is that typically, particularly in West Africa, and you see this in Ethiopia too, because I've seen examples of this, is that you had what you call artisan class families in Africa. So therefore, if someone was a blacksmith and dealt with like metals, it usually passed through generations. So you'd have one family that is responsible for all the blacksmithing of this particular nation or ethnic group. You may have one family that are healers. So all of the healing traditions passes down through generations through this particular family. And then you may have musicians, and the musicians would be part of a family, and it would pass through generations. And so that's how things would happen. So in African tradition, you have the people who are what you would call the repository of the history of the people. And these were the people called the griots and the Jolly Kundas. And these people were charged with being able to recite the history of the people at any time and at any moment. And usually they'd be trained to be able to recite the history of the people for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours straight. So that's the training. And they'd be able to tell the stories on the drop of a dime in a rhythmic way, but it would also be trance inducing. So that's where you got the spoken word tradition. That's where they mistook that Africa only had an oral tradition, even when we have writing traditions, right? Because they would say, oh, the only Africans that had writing traditions were the Egyptians with the hieroglyphs, but that's not true, because if you go to West Africa, you'll see Adinkra, right? And Adinkra was a written symbols that translate into words, right? So you see like the Okobin, the war horn. You'll see different symbols from the Adinkra. And this Adinkra writing system was advanced by a group of Africans in Ghana called the Denchera. The Denchera people who used to rule a lot of West Africa until the Ashantis took over. The Ashantis used to be the sub-kingdom under, or the subgroup under the Dencheras, and then they had a war and the Ashantis took over. But the Ashantis preserved that written tradition of Adinkra. And yeah, Ethiopia has writing too. You have the old language of Ge'ez. So Ge'ez has this writing situation. And then also in Sudan, also they had Meroitic script. And this was the script that was used before ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, right? It's called Meroitic. So it was all around Sudan and places like what you might call South Sudan today, where they actually have the most pyramids. They have more pyramids in Sudan than they do in Egypt. A lot of this hasn't been covered. And a lot of the artifacts in the pyramids got flooded with the Aswan Dam in South Sudan, but that's another story. But the point that I'm getting to is that, as I don't want to digress too much when we get into the health, but we give people time to log in, and I like to have a certain number of people before we get into the health. So these conversations are always good because it's just giving people a wide range of information to have an integrated thought pattern, right? Most people's thought patterns is limited to the countries they're in, so they don't know world history. They don't know what's going on in different parts of the world before they were born. And it's good to know what's been going on in the world, that the world was introduced to you when you came out of the womb. And so there's a lot of things that happened on earth before you were here, and it's good to know and keep up to date with what was going on in different parts of the world. Travel allows you to see that. And then you stop having what you call a solipsistic worldview, which many people have. And a solipsistic worldview is that thinking that the world revolves around you, right? There's a lot of things that were going on this planet before you arrived. And it's good for you to know what was going on in the world that you've been thrust into, right? So you have this Jolly Kunda thing going on in West Africa, and usually it's families, and they will recite the history of the people. And so the poetry that I was doing was Jolly Kunda form of poetry, because it was always about like our history, our culture, our forward progress. That's the only reason why I did poetry. I never got involved in poetry to do like roses are red, violets are blue, or to do like sex poetry or these other, poems that people were interested in. I was really about basically following the tradition of the people who I considered to be heroes, right? The Malcolm X's, the Fela Kutis, the Bob Marleys, the Peter Tosh, the Burning Spears, these type of people who were always exposing us to our history, the Public Enemies, right? Because I saw in my own development, I learned about Marcus Garvey through Public Enemy in KRS. I learned about Malcolm X through Public Enemy in KRS-One.
Talk about it.
You understand what I'm saying? I learned about my first exposure to the Ankh was X-Clan.
The red,
you understand what I'm saying?
the black,
yeah,
the
you know what I'm
green,
saying?
with a key. Those
Sissy,
was my first teachers.
Yeah, that was my
my
you know what I'm
philosophy.
saying? Yeah, and then I started getting into reggae music, and I'm listening to songs like Christopher Columbus is a damn blasted liar. That's Burning Spear song. That's literally the chorus
Right.
to Burning Spear song called Christopher Columbus. And then Culture, which is a reggae group, has a song called "They Never Loved Christopher Columbus," right? And the song "They Never Loved Christopher Columbus in Italy. They never want Christopher Columbus in Rome." You know what I mean? This was my education.
Yeah, Addy's sound system.
Yes.
Stone
you
sound
talking?
system.
You
Kilimanjaro sound system.
You talking?
Right?
Red Pill. You talking? I know you knew about
Kilimanjaro. You know what I'm saying? Stone Love sound system. Bass Odyssey. What did they teach me about? Emmanuel. Selassie I liveth every time. We in a clash. We going to sound clash, and when they early dub plates and they warming it up, I'm learning about Selassie I. There was no Google back then. I'm learning about Emmanuel. I'm like, who are these men that they give so much reverence to?
Right. So when I became an artist, I could only follow in that tradition of using music as a weapon, or using poetry as a weapon. So that's what I did, and I did that for a decade, and that's what I did professionally. And so that's why I have 5 albums. And so I wanted to branch out and say, okay, let me do a musical form. And so what I wanted to do was, I'm always about the unity of our people, because I have a very unique history, right? I'm born in Africa. I'm raised in Chicago. I've spent a good part of my adult life living in the Caribbean, right? So I have real relationships in all 3 places. On the continent, where I speak in African language, and I have hundreds of family members by blood in West Africa. I've lived in East Africa. I've lived in the Caribbean. I've spent a lot of time in Jamaica. I've lived in the U.S. Virgin Islands, spent a lot of time in Barbados. I've spent time in Haiti. So I've been able to see the Caribbean and how our people live. I grew up in Chi-Town, Chicago, spent a lot of time in New York, practiced law in Florida. So I have a different perspective on the world than most people, because I've actually lived in different places and developed friendships and like meaningful relationships in these different places. So I have an integrated view of our history, not from a book perspective, which I have read, the seminal books that we would all need to read, but lived experience has shown me that we have so much in common and we have a shared history. That's why I have the approach that I have. And I don't make these distinctions based on people's geographic locations, because our history, when you start studying the history of our people, where we live, the history, starts sounding the same. And then you start seeing the connections. Like, so for example, I lived in a place called Akampong Town, which is a maroon village in Jamaica. I lived there for a couple months, and Akampong is just an adulteration of the name Achampong from Ghana. And it turns out that, the Maroons were led by two people, Captain Kwejo and Queen Nanny. And Queen Nanny and Captain Kwejo were brother and sister, and they came from Coromantee people in Ghana. And she actually had another name, and her story is very interesting. Nanny was a warrior when she was on the continent, and she actually, there was a war that was lost by her people. She ends up getting, captured by the Europeans and put on a slave boat. She was actually fighting the Europeans uh, on the continent, and she gets captured and puts on, her and her brother, they get captured and put on a slave ship, sent to Jamaica. And when they get to Jamaica, they do what they know to do, which is fight. So they start the Maroon culture of runaway Africans that ran away from Europeans and went all the way up in the mountains. And if anyone has had a chance to go to Jamaica and go to the Maroon village, particularly in St. Elizabeth and Trelawney, which they call a compound town, you would see how our ancestors really had to try to get away from these Europeans, and the trek to get up to a compound town. So the next town that's on the bottom of the mountain is called Magati. So you have Magati and you have Santa Cruz, and you go up the mountain, but you're driving up that mountain for like 40 minutes, man. That's how far you got to go up, and it's up in the clouds, man. And this is what we had to do to get away from Europeans because of what they were doing to us when we were enslaved. And when I went there, I saw all the connections because when they found out I was from Ghana, they welcomed me like a brother because their leader, Captain Kojo, was from Ghana and his last name was Achampong. And Achampong is a very popular last name in Ghana. As a matter of fact, one of our head of states was named General Achampong. And so when I'm sitting down telling these stories, we just had this brotherhood connection, man, and just like sharing stories with each other. There's actually another story of Marcus Garvey's wife. A lot of people don't know this. This is the Amy Jacques Garvey. I think it was Amy Jacques Garvey. I don't think it was Amy Ashwood Garvey. I believe it was Amy Jacques Garvey because Marcus Garvey had two wives and they both had the first name Amy. Really interesting, right?
Did you see in the UK when you pulled up Marcus Garvey's neighborhood?
No, I did not. No, I did not. I did not get a chance to do that. I had two things I wanted to see in the UK. I didn't get a chance to do all of that. But next time I hope to do that.
Yes.
But yeah, so Amy Jacques Garvey, after Marcus Garvey died, she held the mantle for the UNIA. And she started like moving around a lot of African ambassadors. I'll tell the story real quick as we, get started with the health. But this is part of health because it's part of mental health and historical health. So Amy Jacques Garvey meets the ambassador from, I believe, Liberia, right? She meets the ambassador from Liberia, and she talks about like her ancestral line. I believe Amy Jacques Garvey was from, where was she born? In New York? This is a really interesting story. So Amy, I just want to be clear, Amy Jacques Garvey, I just want to know where she was born, just to bring this all full circle. Okay, yeah. So she was born in Jamaica. Was she I believe she's the second wife. Yeah, that's the second wife. Yep. That's the woman I'm talking about. So she was born in Jamaica and spent a lot of time in New York. And so she meets the ambassador and she tells the story that her parents had been telling her, how they have lineage back to the continent. And the story was that her great grandfather was a prince, and he had a name, and so they still remembered his African name. So when she gets to Liberia, she says, "Yeah, I would love to go to Ghana because the story of our family is that my great grandfather was a prince from Ghana." And she said, "Oh, And so the guy, the Liberian ambassador, is friends with the Ghanaian ambassador. Says, I could introduce you to the Ghanaian ambassador. So she meets the Ghanaian ambassador and tells him the story that the family has been telling, for generations. The Ghanaian ambassador says, what's the name of your great-great-grandfather? And he said his name was like a prince, and his name was XYZ. So he said the name. He says, and then the ambassador says, I need you to come to Ghana. She's like, why? She said, because I want you to meet some people. So she goes to Ghana with this ambassador, the Ghanaian ambassador. The Ghanaian ambassador takes her to a village and introduces her to the chief and says to Amy Jacques Garvey, tell your story to the chief. She tells the story. The whole court of the royal people of this particular ethnic group, I can't remember what it was. I have to, I wasn't prepared to talk about this. This just happened spontaneously. They start crying. And she's trying to figure out why they're crying. And she says, your great-great-grandfather, we've been missing him because he was actually the son of this chief, and he was taken away in war. And we've been missing him, and we never knew what happened to him. And we didn't know that he'd been taken to the West, right? We just thought he disappeared. That was the story. So they, in that particular ethnic group, they had the story of this man who was a prince who was going to become the chief, who disappeared. And they never knew what happened to him. And it turns out that was Amy Jacques Garvey's great-great-grandfather. And it all came together. And they they of course adopted her. Not even adopted her. She's royalty of that particular ethnic group. And so these stories are the stories that have to be told. And when I was in Nigeria, when I was living in Lagos, I actually met Fela Kuti's one of his percussionists who used to tour with Fela Kuti, and he was Fela Kuti. So this is what you all will find funny. So Fela Kuti used to keep somebody on the road with him that he would call his ideological advisor. It's very important. I think you'll appreciate this, Red Pill. Fela Kuti saw that, like, in the music industry, there were all these temptations, and a lot of these musicians who started off like radicals, they became weak, right? Because of, the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And being given drugs and given, access to, like Diddy parties and all that type of stuff, right? So Fela Kuti had the presence of mind to say that his mission was the music was going to be a weapon for African liberation, and he never wanted to stray from that path. So to not stray from that path, he didn't want to have yes men around him. So he had the presence of mind to always have on the road with him a person called an ideological advisor. And this ideological advisor had the right to correct Fela whenever he was starting to stray from the path.
Wow.
So this particular brother that I met, his name was Dudu. So in Yoruba, Dudu means black. So that's why you have the black soap is called Dudu Osun, whereas in America, Dudu means defecation, right? That's why I like knowing like where you are and where your audience is, what words to use. But yeah, in Yoruba, Dudu means black. So his name was Dudu, and he was very black. And I'll never forget what he told me. He told me that Dudu was an old man at the time. I think he said his grandmother. He said that when the Europeans came and they were causing havoc in West Africa, literally his grandmother was part of an ethnic group that was in the deep interior of Nigeria, and they had kidnapped her and they put her on the walk. So there's this walk, sometimes it'd be like 100, 200 miles, that when the Europeans captured you, you had to walk from the interior all the way to the coast. And it turns out that the grandmother was one of these people who were captured by the Europeans, and the British particularly. Let's name the ethnic group of the Europeans that were causing havoc in Britain. If you're talking about Ivory Coast and you're talking about Benin, that would be the French tribe, right? But when we're talking about Nigeria, it was the British tribe, you know, the same place I just came from, right? London, them people. So they took Dudu's grandmother and they walked her 200 miles, man, from the interior. And it's a brutal, a lot of people didn't survive it, but she did. And as they were about to put her, this is exactly what Dudu told me. I'll never forget sitting in Lagos and Dudu is telling me this story. We're sitting down. It's a beautiful summer night in Lagos, and we're sitting down under the moon, the bright moon, and Dudu's telling me this story. Dudu just took a liking to me because I was actually doing poetry at that time in Nigeria. So he had seen my performance and he just cleaved on to me because he was literally Fela's ideological advisor and drummer. So we're sitting down talking, and he says his grandmother, he tells his grandmother's story. So his grandmother, right before they were going to put everyone on the slave boat, his grandmother escaped. So when she escaped, she had to find her way back to the village. And it took her 2 years to get back to the village. And when she got back, because they thought she's gone, you know, there's a big celebration for her. And she told the story of the death walk, you know, and how essentially if she didn't escape, who knows what would have happened to her, right? But what we know is that she'd have been transported to whatever British held colonies there were, either in the Caribbean or maybe ended up in Charleston, South Carolina, because there was a lot of, but this was probably post Civil War. So they were, remember that the US Constitution had a law in it that there would be no change to the importation of Africans from the continent to America until 1808. So in other words, there could be no laws passed on the importation of our people before 1808 in the US Constitution. And then after that, they could deal with it. And a lot of them started banning the importation of our people because what they found was that in the South, our numbers were too populous, right? So because of population control, they didn't want us to be so many. That's why they had a 3/5 compromise, because there's so many of us were in the South that if it was one person, one vote, and you counted all the Africans, then the Congress of the United States would be heavily populated by white people from the South because they would have greater numbers. And so what they compromised was that we'll count all the Africans as a 3/5 of a person so that the number won't be so great because there's so many black folks in the southern states. I mean, you know, this is all constitutional law. But the point that I'm making is that these stories are important, and the Jolly Kundas are the ones who carry these stories and these traditions. And Jolly Kundas exist. Like we have them either in the form of the traditional Jolly Kunda in West Africa. We have them in America. You'd have them in the early hip hop artists, right? That's certainly KRS-One was a Jolly Kunda. Certainly X-Clan and Public Enemy, when they're telling these stories of our people, these are Jolly Kundas. Like when you see the video "Can't Trust It" by Public Enemy. So I'm digging the crates now. I don't want to let people know like how deep my hip hop history can get. But when you see "Can't Trust It" and he's talking, he's saying King and Chief must have had a big beef. Reason why today I'm gritting my teeth. He's talking about the King of England and the chiefs of Africa must have had a big beef, and today that's why I'm gritting my teeth. He's talking about the wars and what caused us to be put on these boats. So Can't Trust It. Definitely Chuck D is a Jolly Kunda. And then you have the Bob Marleys and you have the Peter Tosches and the Burning Spears. These are Jolly Kundas because they're telling our stories as well. So I always came in that tradition. And so what I did was creating this thing called Spoken Dub that stands out from dub poetry is I'm merging the spoken word oral tradition, a Jolly Kunda tradition from West Africa, plus the roots reggae instrumentalization out of the Caribbean, plus blues guitar from America, from Mississippi blues guitar, the Delta blues, right? So what you see in spoken dub is that you see actually emerging in a reverse triangulation of what they call the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, which was Africa, United States, and the Caribbean. That's what they call the triangular slave trade. The Caribbean also being, South America being put into that. So they had this, what they call the triangular slave trade, which was the global economy at the time. So and we were broken apart that way. So what I'm doing is I'm putting all the pieces together by merging African tradition, the Black American tradition of the blues, and also the roots reggae tradition. So when you hear spoken dub, you're going to hear all those three elements. And so that is what I will be releasing in the next couple months. And I'll actually be going on the road with my good brother Jelani from Bamboo Station. So y'all get ready for that.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I look forward to it. Let me know when you we want to play it on the radio as well. So let me know.
Yeah, I have a couple tracks already. I'll send it to you, and we'll deal with that.
All right.
So I think it's been enough time to get people on. We've got a good number of people on. Let me talk about what we're gonna talk about today. So I want to play this interview by a guy named Gary Brecka. Gary Brecka is a very important person because he gets results. He is in he's engaged in what I'm engaged in, which is illness reversal. He's not a medical doctor. He's much like me. He has a degree in biology, but
hold on.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Should I be switching to Patreon right
now? No, because this is on YouTube itself.
Okay.
And I'm going to speed it up a little bit so it won't be tracked. But this is a very important interview that I want people to see. Essentially, Gary Brecka used to work in the insurance industry, life insurance. And he talks about how the life insurance industry, because of the business that they're involved in, can predict people's death to the month and the day based on looking at their medical profile and the pharmaceuticals that they are presently on. And I want you all to hear that. So I'm going to play a little bit of that and we're going to just talk about it because I want you all to really be in tune with what's really happening in the world, business wise when it comes to health. So this is about the intersection of business and health. And he drops a lot of gems in here. So I want to share this with you all because I thought this is a very important interview. So here we go.
And I took, like I told you, I took pictures of all the little devices that hydrogenate the water and started Googling around and got in touch with one of the companies and really started researching it. And so I'm going to get all that stuff.
Dude, there's a website called hydrogenstudies.com. You can go there for free. It's all the consolidated research on hydrogen gas, using hydrogen to increase circulation, reduce inflammation, improve cognitive function. I mean, just go there and read it. There's animal and human studies on there. You can select out the animal studies and read the human clinical trials. I think it's the best kept secret in all of modern medicine. I mean, for athletic performance, you talk to like a John Jones or a Michael Chandler or some of these other athletes that I've worked with. Simple changes to their regimen, like having them bathe in hydrogen water, having them drink hydrogen water, and the reduction in pain level and the improvement in performance because of the reduction in inflammation. But most people that are in the kind of pain that you were in, knees, hips, shoulders, rotator cuff, low back, they're on corticosteroids, anti-inflammatories like a methotrexate or dexamethasone or prednisone, called Medrol Dosapax, or they're taking pain medication. Mm-hmm. When you can actually take a warm bath in hydrogen gas and get the same effect. And it not only can last longer, it can potentially permanently reverse those conditions.
No kidding.
Oh yeah. I mean, after,
How did you, I don't want to get too far in the weeds because we're just starting out.
Okay, right.
I know we'll get more into this, but I don't want to forget this question. I mean, how the hell did you even, who comes up with to me, this is like,
you asked like 4 questions.
To me, this is like psychedelics. Who picked up the toad and rubbed it and ate the venom or smoked the venom? Who came up with that?
Right.
And so I want to know, how did you find hydrogen and its benefits?
My undergraduate degrees are in biology and my postgraduate degrees are in human biology. So I've always been crazy fascinated with the human body And the more I study the human body, the more it's actually strengthened my faith, the more I believe that this was created by a divine being and it wasn't by accident. Like, you'll never convince me that 2 bacteria banged 1 billion years ago in a mud puddle and a lizard grew out and eventually we became Homo sapiens, and here we are, right? And it doesn't even make sense evolutionarily because there's huge gaps in the fossil record, but we can talk about that later. But I've been fascinated by the human body, and I just believe so much more in what God gave us than what man makes us. And we become a society that's just become so dependent on chemicals, on synthetics, on pharmaceuticals. But when you really start to look at the research, which I'm fascinated by, like, my heroes are the scientists and the PhDs and the MDs and the researchers that are doing real work, studying real human beings to try to extend life and improve humanity. And what you find in most of this research is that we're just getting back to the basics, right? Sunlight, grounding, breath work, whole foods. So hydrogen's been, I mean, you're probably 60% hydrogen by weight. I mean, think of the percentage of water you are. And it's harmless to human beings. But this gas has anti-inflammatory properties. It feeds a whole class of bacteria in our gut. It's improves circulation. It improves the absorption of our supplements, our nutrients. So, simple things like switching to drinking hydrogen water, like using a hydrogen water bottle or hydrogen tablets, bathing in hydrogen water, water that's been circulated through a machine that just adds hydrogen gas to the water. Game changers. Psoriasis, eczema, and don't take my word for it. Google around, go to hydrogenstudies.com, read the research for yourself. So, and this is one of those things I studied, after I really kind of got into the biohacking space, because I was in the mortality space for decades, predicting death. And as I've really started to go down the rabbit hole of what is truly extending life, like, how do we not just add years to our life? How do we add life to our years? Like, how do we not grow old and have to deal with all the consequences of aging? Well, the way you grow old and don't deal with the consequences of aging is you give the body the raw material it needs to do its job, right? And if you look at the broad research on this, like, look at blue zones, for example, right, where you have these centenarians, people that live way beyond age 100. If you look at all of these blue zone areas of the world, you won't find continuity between diets. Right? So the dogmatic dieting is not the answer. So it's not vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, carnivore, keto, paleo, raw food. It's not these hyper dogmatic diets. It's whole food diets, right? You go to Sardinia and you see that it's one of the highest carbohydrate consumptions in the world. Well, how are they eating so many carbohydrates and living to 117 years old? Well, they make their bread from scratch. They make their pasta from scratch. These are all whole foods. You go to the Mediterranean and that flies in the face of modern medical recommendations. High amounts of fatty fish, lots of oils, cheese. So, and then you go to, the French are screwing the whole thing up because they're smoking cigarettes and drinking wine and eating cheese. And some of those areas they're living forever. You go to Singapore, it's one of the highest meat consumptions in the world, one of the longest life expectancies in the world. So what's the commonality? The commonality is a whole food diet. In the United States, 67% of our diet is highly processed foods, which are not even foods. Right. So I have an intellectual curiosity like a child. Like, I'm absolutely fascinated by the human body. And I think that we are just barely beginning to understand what God's created. And I believe more in its ability to heal itself. I believe more in its ability to heal the environment around it than I do in the chemical industrial complex. And so we should be studying things like that: hydration, nutrition, hydrogen water, hydrogen gas. These are things that are readily available for us. So when I asked you that day if you had any aches or pains and you're like, you got some time?
Yeah.
You're like everything hurts. I go, you're going to wake up tomorrow morning, nothing's going to hurt. I remember I could see the doubt in your face.
You're right. You're right. But we'll get into that here in a bit. Everybody starts off with an introduction here.
Okay.
So Gary Brecka, you're a human biologist, biohacker, and longevity expert with over 2 decades of experience in optimizing human performance and wellness. Previously, you were a mortality modeling expert in the insurance industry, using medical records and demographic data from 360 million lives to predict lifespans with remarkable precision. Determined to transition from predicting lifespans to extending them, you embarked on a quest to optimize biomarkers and unlock the secrets to a longer, healthier life. Since this transition, you founded The Ultimate Human media platform and podcast where you share insight with celebrities, athletes, and scientists. You're a consultant to high-profile individuals, including CEOs, professional athletes, and celebrities such as Dana White, John Jones, and Stephen A. Smith, working with a team of experts to optimize mind, body, and spirit through science-backed methods. You're also a husband, a father, and probably most important of all, a man of faith and a Christian.
Amen.
And I know I'm missing a ton of other convictions.
Those are the highlights. Those are great.
But and one thing we do is we have a Patreon account. They're our top supporters. Many of them have been with us since the beginning. And this whole thing kind of started off in my attic as a hobby, and they have enabled me to grow this into what it is today. And so one of the things I offer them is I give them insight into who's coming on the podcast, and offer them the opportunity to ask each and every guest a question.
Cool. So they knew that I was coming on. So these were specifically for me. All right,
This is specifically for you. So this is from Jesse. What do you believe is the most underestimated factor in optimizing longevity and cognitive performance, and how can individuals practically integrate this into their daily routines?
So the most underutilized, overlooked area in all of human optimization, as we talked about a few minutes ago, is sleep. If you're not sleeping, you're not healing, you're not repairing, you're not eliminating waste, you're not toxifying. And so if I was to just pick one thing to optimize in my life to improve my cognitive performance, it would be sleep. And then followed by a second, third, and fourth, and I'll just lay those out for Jesse. The second would be movement. Again, going back to the discussion we had about the blue zones, one of the things that was common between all of the different blue zones, which was not diet, was mobility into later in life. So sitting is the new smoking. Sedentary lifestyle is now the leading cause of all-cause mortality.
Wow.
Yeah.
The leading cause?
It is the leading cause of all-cause mortality, meaning the greatest impact on the total number of deaths, what's called a modifiable risk factor, is sedentary lifestyle. I have a saying that aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. And most of us are aggressively pursuing comfort.
I'm gonna stop there real quick. I want to be clear on what he said, and I've talked about this before, but this is a big quote that he said that, number one, the number one cause of all-cause mortality at this point is a sedentary lifestyle. This is what he said. So if you're not moving your body, you're not, he said it's worse than smoking cigarettes. Okay. If you don't use it, you lose it. But then the next thing he said is very profound. He said that aging is the endless pursuit of comfort. This is very profound, and give it some thought, right? We don't want to walk upstairs. We want to take elevators. We don't want to, go outside and do yard work or do, anything that might be strenuous. We may not want to get up and do those push-ups. Yeah, and do those push-ups we used to do. And I've talked to you all about the study that shows that men who are able to do 40 push-ups have a 90% decreased risk in heart disease, in heart attacks. I've shared that study with you all, right? Yeah. And so think about it. Like, as people get older, they start pursuing comfort. But then is it that as they get older, they start pursuing comfort more? Or is it that because of their pursuit of comfort, they're getting older? Do you get what I'm saying? Remember what we used to do as kids. Kids are running around. They want to play. They want to exert pressure on their body. They want to go swimming. As you get older, you stop doing the things that you did when you were younger, because you're always, you're driving to the store. We used to, when people were part of communities and villages, they would walk to the store. People would walk places. And now, you can literally ask somebody, when's the last time you had a full sprint? Like, literally. And I've talked about this in several shows. It's a very good thing. If you have not run in a long time, the human body was made to run because we come from hunter-gatherer societies, right? And check this out. I challenge you all. If you're over 40, ask yourself, when's the last time you actually sprinted? Like a full-on sprint, like when you did when you were a kid, when you used to play tag or whatever, sports that you used to play. We stopped doing those things and we stopped sprinting. That's the number one sign that you are in an endless pursuit of comfort. When is the last, it gets 80 degrees outside, we want to turn on the AC, right? We don't want heat. We don't want to be out in the sun, which gives us the vitamin D that we need for our immune system, because it's uncomfortable. When you get used to AC, anything over 80 degrees makes you feel uncomfortable. Right. But this is not normal. That's not normal. That's not how human beings evolved. So the thing is like, look, what he said is profound. That's why I watch podcasts. So my form of entertainment is to watch podcasts of like people who are accomplished and people who are like thinkers. And so I listen to information from anybody. I don't care who you are, where you are, what walk of what life, what ethnic group you belong to, whatever wisdom I can soak from anyone, I'm going to take it, right? And I can listen to Gary Brecka, and the things that he says rings true. And he said very clearly, and keep this like as a mantra, aging is the endless pursuit of comfort. When's the last time you did a sprint, y'all? And I'm going to tell you this. Most of you all have not run full force in a decade or more, right? And if you think about that, that's quite ridiculous. And if you try to run today, you're going to trip over yourself and fall because your body's not used to running. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to start getting used to running. And one of the best things you can do in terms of health is sprinting. Look at a sprinter's body.
Right.
Right? Look at a sprinter's body. Well, this explosiveness that you do for 20, 30 seconds is actually extremely good for your health and in your organs in so many different ways. It's called HIIT training, high intensity interval training.
Right.
And this is very important. So I would advise people, and I'm not saying that like I stick to this all the time, but when I'm on my regimen, I'm sprinting. When I mean sprinting, I'm running full force, at least 50 yards. I'm running 50 yards, and I'm doing about 6 50-yard sprints. And I'll do it 3 to 4 times a week when I'm on my regimen, right? But this really should be something that I'm doing all the time. If you're playing sports like soccer or basketball on a regular basis, you'll get that sprinting in as just part of playing the sport. But if you're not playing sports, you want to, I don't care how old you are, if you're 80 years old, you want to start building your body up to a point where you can sprint at full speed. And if you can't do it, that means that you've been on the endless pursuit of comfort. Right. You may have injuries that you need to deal with, but the human body was made to run. And if you haven't run in over a decade, it's a good sign to show how sedentary you've been. Okay, so this is very important. I think y'all brothers have some comments? Sorry.
I was gonna say that I've been in New York now for approximately about 2 weeks, and I haven't walked this much in a very long time because in Atlanta, you know, it's frowned upon. You know what I mean? Like, even when I say, yeah, I'm gonna go walk from the house to the trail, it's like, nah, take the car. You don't need to be walking because you know, it doesn't look right. Like, damn, it don't look right. Like, what does it look like? It looks like something is wrong with you.
Right.
And I live in a cul-de-sac, like, you know, with all kind of greenery. You know, Atlanta's a forest.
Right.
But like you were saying, and I'm sure Brother Anthony could attribute that we live in a forest, but we live inside of a goddamn AC box.
That's right.
We scared of the sun, bro.
There you go.
And from what my studies show me, artificial air strips away your auric field. It lowers your quote unquote, you know, it's detrimental to your aura. Fake air is not good.
That's right.
You know, and even a fan to that respect, pools versus the ocean is not real.
Right.
You know, it's stripping away our aura, is making us more susceptible to the you know, all type of things that are around us and whatnot. Forest bathing is frowned upon. So I'm walking in New York, you know, I got people that are not used to walking with me, and it's almost like torture.
Right.
You know?
Can you imagine?
Yep.
Can you imagine? And so Gary Brecka is going to break down like what happens and how they're able to literally look at, particularly when like old people get broken hips. It's a great sign that the person is going to die in about 36 months because they become sedentary. Like, he's going to talk about it. And so this is very important. And moving your body is free, y'all. You don't have to join a gym. You can, but you actually can do all these activities for free, right? Walking is free. Running is free. Doing push-ups is free.
Hey,
Doing
stop,
air
stop,
squats is free.
stop
You
there,
know what I'm
brother.
saying?
Push-ups, man. We had a push-up challenge when you was talking about push-ups months ago. And Brother Red Pill, man, try it, man. Try doing 40 to 50 push-ups continuously, man.
Mhm.
It ain't easy.
Right. If you're not used to it and you haven't, been on that regimen, it's going to be very difficult. But I can tell you, like, you can build yourself up to it. Every time you do push-ups, you may, as a grown man, I don't care what age you are, you should be able to do 40 push-ups. Period. Like, there's no negotiation on
That's right.
that. You should be able to do 40 push-ups in a row. Now, some of you all are out of practice, but just please know that being able to do 40 push-ups in a row literally keeps you 90% lower risk than everyone else from having the number one killer of human beings, which is heart disease.
Right.
Like the study is there, right? And maybe I should just find it and share it with people real quick so that you all can see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. This is the study here. I'm going to share this study with you all. You all can look at it. It's on the National Institute of Health. Right here. This is the title of it. You all can see it.
Yeah, we got it.
The National Library of Medicine.
Right.
Association between push-up exercise capacity and future cardiovascular events among active adult men. That is the study. You all just want to read it, okay? And it is very important to be able to understand why it's necessary to be physically fit. It's not just to look good, but it literally extends your life, right?
Right.
They have many articles about this, and so that's the study there, but here's my AI search assistant. It says that male firefighters, that those who could do 40 or more push-ups had 96% lower risk of heart disease over 10 years than those who could do 10 or fewer. Okay? This is very, very important.
No question.
Okay? So you can just do a Google search and you'll see the titles. This says it directly in the title. It says, men who can do more than 40 push-ups are 96% less likely to develop heart disease.
Right.
Okay? So my brothers, and I would say for the women, try to do at least 20 of the modified push-ups, right? And for men, you need to be able to do 40 regular push-ups, okay? And if you can't, work your way up to it. That means that if you can only do 20, try every week to add 2 more and try to get to 22. Then, before you know it, in a month or 2, you're at 40, which is the desired number to be able to be 96% less likely to develop heart disease, which is the number one killer of human beings. So just that alone, tuning in today, you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to, it's free. All you got to do is get on the floor and start putting that work in, right? Remember, the relentless pursuit, aging is the relentless pursuit of comfort. That's a bar. That's a bar. Like Gary Brecka he was spitting on that. So let's go a little bit further and hear what he says, because he says some profound things in here that I completely agree with. Okay, so I'm going to rewind that a little bit and then let him drop the ism on y'all, because a lot of times we talk about health, there's usually some type of dollar sign associated with some of these remedies, but a lot of things that you can do for your health has no dollar sign attached to it. That is fasting, and that is exercising. Okay, there's doing push-ups. There should be no dollar sign attached to that. So this is something you can do on your own. Okay, all right, check this out.
So the most underutilized, overlooked area in all of human optimization, as we talked about a few minutes ago, is sleep. If you're not sleeping, you're not healing, you're not repairing, you're not eliminating waste, you're not toxifying. And so if I was to just pick one thing to optimize in my life, to improve my cognitive performance, it would be it would be sleep. And then followed by a second, third, and fourth, and I'll just lay those out for Jesse. The second would be movement. Again, going back to the discussion we had about the blue zones, one of the things that was common between all of the different blue zones, which was not diet, was mobility into later in life. So sitting is the new smoking. Sedentary lifestyle is now the leading cause of all-cause mortality.
Wow.
Yeah.
The leading cause?
It is the leading cause of all-cause mortality, meaning the greatest impact on the total number of deaths, what's called a modifiable risk factor, is sedentary lifestyle. I have a saying that aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. And most of us are aggressively pursuing comfort. We are accelerating the rate at which we age. We have to stop thinking about stress as being a negative, right? Stress can be very good for us. If you don't actually load your bones, they will not strengthen. I don't care how much calcium you take. If you don't actually tear a muscle, it won't grow. If you don't challenge the immune system, it will weaken. The worst thing that came out of the pandemic, second maybe only to the vaccine itself, and we could talk about that, but was residential quarantining, masking, and social distancing. You took human beings out of contact with other human beings. So what happens when that occurs? The immune system weakens, right? The body's very efficient. If you stop using something, it will forget about it. Right? If you put a cast on your left arm, even if it's healthy, and you take it off in 6 weeks and you compare your left arm to your right arm, it will not only have lost muscle mass, but you will have lost a lot of tissue, right? Not just fat, muscle, tendon, ligament, bone will start to demineralize, because if you don't use it, you lose it. And so when we stopped challenging the immune system weakened. And then we woke up from the pandemic and everybody went back to quote unquote normal society. And now you start hearing about things like, well, we're on our 8th version of Omicron. We're monkeypox. Well, what the hell is monkeypox? Where did that come from? Well, it's always been around. It's just been so weak that it never manifested itself. But you globally weaken the immune system, and now you've got a weakened society without a strong immune system, and you're seeing the consequences of that. So, sleep first, and mobility second. And I don't care how deconditioned you are. You don't have to go out and do HIITs cardio and super Spartan races. You just need to move, and 3 15-minute walks a day. Apply stress to your body. I mean, the simple fact is, if you want to live a long time, lift heavyweight.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm. No question.
Lift heavyweight.
Lift heavyweight. Challenge your body, tear your muscles, apply stress to the body, lift things that are heavy. Not so heavy that you hurt yourself. I don't believe in loading the spine, but if you can walk, that's excellent for you. It's probably the most underrated exercise in the world. But if you only had time to do cardiovascular training or weight training, I would do weight training, right?
Really?
Even if it's just body weight exercises, no question, because weight training beats cardiovascular training hands down. Muscle is not only our metabolic currency, but muscle is, in my opinion, and probably Gabrielle Lyon would share this with me too, is the largest organ in the body. Like, what does muscle do that we don't know that it does? We know it holds our skeleton up and it, moves our bones around, but makes us look good if we're physically fit. But the truth is that muscle is a sponge for glucose. Right? I mean, it absorbs glucose. It uses the sugar in our bloodstream. If you want to lower your blood sugar, move your muscles. It also holds our skeletal system erect. The greatest risk to longevity in the elderly is frailty. Right? That's why grip strength is actually directly tied to longevity.
No kidding.
When you look, no question. I mean, the elderly, what happens is, falls are enormous risk to the elderly and to the frail. Why do people start falling in older ages? Is it because they're losing their balance, or they're disoriented, or they trip more often? No, you probably had 6 incidences in the last month where you would have fallen if you didn't have the grip strength to stop yourself, right? But you can hold on to your door handle, you can grab the railing of a stair, you can brace yourself on the wall, and you just moved on about your day. When you're frail and you can't stop the momentum of a fall, and you end up with a catastrophic injury, and then without loading our spine, without loading our skeletal system, it begins to weaken. How many of us know, we used to call it the triad of death in the mortality space when I was doing mortality research. Someone would break their hip and within 36 months, they were dead. Why would a hip fracture lead to early death? Because the majority of hip fractures in the elderly are not elderly people falling and breaking their hip. The majority of hip fractures in the elderly are the hip breaking and then they fall. And there's a difference between the fracture causing the fall and the fall causing the fracture. So when your skeletal system is so weak that it can not only support its own weight, grandma standing at the kitchen sink doing dishes and her femoral head cracks and she falls, and they go, oh my gosh, grandma fell and broke her hip. No, she didn't. Her hip broke and then she fell. And so we have pursued comfort so aggressively that we become so frail that we can't even essentially protect ourselves. So those would be my big recommendations would be start a process. I mean, Sardinia, for example, in the blue zones in Sardinia, their life expectancy was directly related to the greater the slope they walked up. The steeper the slope, the longer the life expectancy.
No kidding.
You got 93, 97-year-old men and women walking up 30+ degree slopes.
I can bear witness to this. What he's saying is very real. I'm going to stop sharing this real quick. Look, y'all, if you haven't spent time in different parts of the world where people live in villages, you're missing out. because in my travels, I've seen 90, 100-year-old people with great muscle tone walking up mountains that I was struggling to walk up. I've seen they're walking up mountains carrying things. I'll never forget when I lived in Jamaica in a compound town. It's very, very hilly. It's very steep. When I mean steep, the roads, it got to be like 30-degree angles at some points, man. Like I remember like really struggling to get up these mountains and these hills. I'm talking about just like to visit somebody. Like, like just a basic, I'm going down the street to visit like, a brethren down the street in a compound town, and you would have to walk up, and I would see old people carrying things and walking up and still having conversations with each other and laughing. And I'm walking up the hill and I'm dying. You know what I'm saying? That was because at the time I had asthma, but the olive leaf extract got rid of my asthma. So I'm able to like walk and run up mountains a lot better than I used to. But I grew up with asthma, and I'm watching these old people, 90-year-old people, and I've seen the same thing in Ghana. I've seen the same thing in Nigeria. I've seen it even in the rural South in America, like in places like Dothan, Alabama. And you'll see old people who are still attached to the land, who walk every day, and they're more fit than the young people of today. And these people are living lives without medication because they are using their body and they are putting their body under some type of stress, and they are not in the aggressive pursuit of comfort. They, this is just life for them. And so what he was saying is that you can see that the longevity, what they call the blue zones, is that where people live the longest. You can actually predict the blue zones based on the slope that people had to walk on. And you can see it in Dominica. I'll never forget. There was this, I was living in the Virgin Islands in what they call, I think it was the north side, they call it, the north side in the Virgin Islands. And there was a grocery store, a little bodega store I used to have to walk to. And the thought was to like run up the mount, like the mount is very steep to get back to my house. And the thought was to be able to run. I couldn't do it. But my sister-in-law, who was in Dominica, came and visited us. And running up that mountain was nothing for her. And she wasn't an athlete or nothing, but it's just that she grew up in Dominica where people have to run and walk up mountains every day. And so for her to clear that slope to the house running, she was able to run all the way. Whereas I was able to run like a few seconds and I would get tired because the slope was like this, man.
In Atlanta, you see that if you go to Stone Mountain, there's like, and I see it with the elderly the Asians, right? The Asians and the Caribbean, they clearing that mountain like it's nothing. I'm talking about they're clearing that mountain. They're literally clearing it, going straight up, incline, no worries. With like heavy overclothes on,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see it over and over again, man. Yeah. And it lets me know that there's different levels of fitness based on what people are used to, man. And that if you live in that soft life all your life, your life expectancy is actually going to be dulled, and your quality of life later on is going to be dulled. And basically, you're indoors all the time working. Here's what I'll just tell you all. One of the most poignant things I've ever seen was when I lived in Miami Beach. This is around the time I met you, Phil, when we were both living on Miami Beach.
Yeah, man.
I remember going to the beach, and there's this old white man in a wheelchair, and his wife was pushing his wheelchair, and they had to stop at the, like, where like you have the sidewalk and then you see the beach start. Well, he couldn't go on the beach, but he'd retired. And so I was just talking to them, and like, he was talking about his retirement and how he's like, retired after working for like 40 years and this and that. And I looked at him and he couldn't even go on the beach. So he couldn't even enjoy his retirement, that he was so sick that he's in a wheelchair. In a wheelchair, can't go on sand. So he couldn't even enjoy his retirement. He'd worked all this time to have freedom to do whatever he wants, but now he can't do whatever he wants because he's old and sick. And it's okay to get old, but when you get sick along with that, that's the problem.
Right. What was some advice that you would give our 9-to-5ers who be in the office? I remember there was I forgot who was breaking it down, but they was breaking down the cycle of a city worker in Anytown, USA.
Mm-hmm.
And they were breaking down how in the winter during daylight saving time, people are going into the office before the sun goes up.
Yeah.
And then they coming out the office 4 p.m., 5 p.m. The sun is down.
Yeah.
No vitamin D, no sunlight.
No sunlight.
They're sedentary. They're working in the office. So I'm sure all of us know city workers who, people that maybe are alumni that we went to school with. Now that they've got city jobs, you feel me? They might be driving a bus, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or they might be doing the train station thing and whatnot. But we be like, God damn, like you've gotten big over the years.
Yeah.
No disrespect, but what the fuck? So what is some advice that we could give?
Yeah. So the advice that I would give people is to have time-based eating. That's one of the most important things that you could do. In other words, every day you have a window that you eat. You're not snacking the whole day long, because every time you eat food, you're triggering your insulin. And when you're particularly if you're eating, refined carbohydrates, which most people are doing in the form of the snack food or prepackaged food or food from the restaurants and all of this, you're eating, you're having vegetable oil and you're having refined carbohydrates. And if you're doing that throughout the day, you're going to be metabolically unhealthy and then cause insulin resistance, which is responsible for all these other health problems. So one of the best things you can do is, particularly after you hit 40, you want to have at the most an 8-hour window to eat every day. It's a continuous window. It's not broken up. So therefore 12 to 8. So from noon to 8, that's your eating window. Before noon, you're not eating anything. After 8, you're not eating anything. And if you have any type of illness or you're overweight, you want to shrink that down to 6 or 4 hours. So you'd go whatever works with your schedule, maybe 1 to 5, or maybe 2 to 6, whatever works for you. If you want aggressive weight loss and aggressive metabolic restoration of health, you would do a 4-hour window every day. And during this time, you would try to eat what you call whole foods, which is foods that are unadulterated with chemicals. That means that you look at the ingredients and it has the least ingredients possible. This is food that we're calling whole food and unprocessed food. So this is what you want to do. You do that as a lifestyle, it's going to reap a lot of rewards for you. The next thing in terms of movement, I believe that I don't think that people need a complex gym. I think that if you get, for women, at least 10-pound weights, or 20-pound, men, 30 to 40-pound weights. And what I mean by that is like, all you need is like the dumbbells. And with those dumbbells, you hold them up and you can start doing squats, right? In other words, you're putting pressure on your body by doing these squats. Squats are a great exercise because your biggest muscle group is your legs. And actually, there's a lot of research that shows that you can judge someone's longevity by their legs. Like if they have muscles in their legs and their legs are built up.
Question.
As a very, very, very wise brother said, it's leg day.
It's leg day.
It's leg
Question.
day. Yeah.
Do we have because now the football season is over and we see the power and the emphasis on the legs, right?
Yeah.
Watching these men in doing this football season really showed the emphasis on leg power.
Yeah.
You coming back from the UK, speaking about how you saw a huge difference in the health and the people and whatnot. I know over there football is bigger than the sports that we value over here and whatnot, even though basketball and the football that we play and whatnot, it is a big emphasis on the legs and whatnot. But over there, I saw them real heavy on the legs and everything.
Yeah.
Like is there like a exercise that we could
Yeah.
begin to
Yeah.
incorporate
For your legs,
to
the
help our
best.
legs big
Yeah,
up?
man. From my estimation, the best exercise for legs is squats. And you don't have to have a big, barbell on your back doing squats. You literally can have the dumbbells in each hand and hold them like this and start just doing your squats and try to do at least 12. So you anywhere from 12 to 15 that's your set right there. And try to do at least 3 a day. If you can do 3 sets a day of that, and you can increase the weight as you get more comfortable, that would be very good. And then your push-ups. So now, when you're doing squats, it's almost like a full body exercise because you're also strengthening your core. When you're holding the weights, you're using your arm muscles and your shoulders. So it's a great exercise. And then push-ups. So if you do just squats and push-ups, you're going to go a long way in your health. Just those 2 things, squats and push-ups. I try to keep things simple: squats, push-ups, intermittent fasting. And then, take your vitamin D if you're not out in the sun, preferably the Herbal Results brand, because we just make the best and the strongest vitamin D. But you do that stuff. If you have inflammation, you take the olive leaf extract, you add some magnesium to your vitamin D. Those things, like if you just do, so most of your health issues, if you just do those things. So in terms of diet, try to, eat a whole foods-based diet, which is the least chemicals possible based diet. Do time-based eating, which is have a window to eat every day. Like I don't eat before noon. And a lot of times I don't eat before 2 p.m. And I try my best to shut it down by 6, 7 latest. That's my window to eat every day. It's like 2 to 6 p.m. We're in mango season, so sometimes I eat a little bit past that because I'm just in the mood to eat mangoes. But outside of mango season, I try to keep 2 to 6 p.m. That's what I do in terms of my eating window, right? Now, in terms of exercise, if you just do your squats and you do push-ups, you're kind of good to go. You can add bench press and all that other fly stuff. That's fine. And then you do your sprints. Try to do at least 4 back-to-back sprints, back-to-back sprints, and you'll feel great for the day. You can do walking as well. That's low intensity. But in terms of like getting yourself together, if you do that, the dietary thing that I told you about by eating whole foods, which is the least chemicalized foods possible within a 4 to 6 hour window every day, take olive leaf extract for anti-inflammatory purposes, take vitamin D and magnesium for your immune system, do push-ups, do squats, do sprinting. That package right there is going to get you back to your 21-year-old most fit self. I mean, just try it with me. Just try it. Try it. Just try it. Just try it for a month. What I'm saying, if everyone can get into that regimen for a month, I mean, we could all just do it together. I'm just telling you, this is what I do, but it's not that I'm necessarily sprinting every day like I used to, but I can definitely get back on that regimen. I think like get a group of people and accountability people and just do what I'm saying for 30 days. Time restricted eating to a 4-hour window if you can do that, particularly if you got extra weight on you. Do your push-ups, do your squats, and then take your olive leaf extract, take your vitamin D, take your magnesium along with that. And then report to me how you feel in 30 days. You're going to see changes in your body. You're going to see changes in your sleep. You're sleeping better. All of these things are going to happen because you're moving your body. You're restricting how much food you're eating because we're eating more than we need to, right? We're just engaged in gluttony and it's aging us. Like I'm seeing people I went to high school with and they look like they're in bad shape. People I went to school with, like they're in bad shape. We're all the same age and they just look terrible because they're aging so fast.
They say that people are skipping this whole trend of reunions. that shit going out the window.
Right, because people are ashamed of what they
They're
look
not
like now.
right. They're not, you know, the Facebook shit bad enough, right? You know,
Right.
but then you got filters and whatnot.
Right.
They are not showing up to the reunions.
Yep.
They don't want to see people from the past. They're not interested. They're like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, it's real, man. Someone says Princess Fula. Big up Princess Fula. Greetings, Red Pillar and Heru. I started
Dope.
taking the vitamin D3 along with the magnesium, zinc, selenium supplements from Herbal Results, and has tremendously helped with my vitamin D deficiency. Yeah, it will. And I'll just tell you that I literally reverse engineered the vitamin D product we have at Herbal Results by testing myself first. And what I did was I took my vitamin D levels. I went to get a vitamin D test just down the street from me. You can get it at healthlabs.com. Put in your zip code. It'll give you the closest place that you can go. And I believe it was $49 for my vitamin D test. I test my vitamin D level. I took 1 dropper full, which is, this is the bottle here. I took 1 dropper full for 30 days. And literally, Red Pill, I went back and got a test, just like any scientist would do. And my vitamin D level went up 100 points in 30 days. I can confirm that, and it's consistent with all my customers. So if you want your vitamin D levels to go up 100 points in 30 days, all you do is just get this $30 bottle from Herbal Results. This will last you 1 month at 1 full dropper. Every day, your vitamin D score will increase by 100%. This is directly from the horse's mouth, because I've done the tests on myself, okay? So yeah, big up. You're going to see that you're going to have a lot of more energy. You're sleeping better. You fight off diseases better. You just feel like a new, different person when your vitamin D levels get to where they need to get to, okay? There's people asking some questions. I'll get to some of it. But I do want to get back to some of what Gary Brecka said, because there's some important stuff that he has. So let's get into that. All right. So the other thing that I wanted to say is that notice what he talked about. He said that, like a lot of elderly people, if your fall, a lot of people think that they fell and then broke their hip, but actually a lot of people, they broke their hip that caused them to fall. And he's saying that if your hip broke and it caused you to fall, they can literally time that 36 months later after that event is going to be death, typically. And so listen to what he's saying. So there's a difference between falling and breaking your hip, and breaking your hip and causing you to fall. Breaking your hip and causing you to fall means that you have weak bones. In other words, you weren't using your bones. You weren't doing the squats that we're talking about. You weren't running. You were in the endless and the aggressive pursuit of comfort all this time, and you did not put any type of stress, or you were not getting vitamin D, which would lead to calcium as a byproduct to strengthen your bones, because vitamin D deficiency is also indicative of bone mineral deficiency as well, because calcium is a byproduct of vitamin D. So listen carefully to what he's saying.
Blocks to go to church, 4 blocks over to the market, 4 blocks back home.
I'm going to rewind it just a little bit.
Grandma's standing at the kitchen sink doing dishes, and her femoral head cracks and she falls, and they go, "Oh my gosh, Grandma fell and broke her hip." No, she didn't. Her hip broke and then she fell. And so we have pursued comfort so aggressively that we become so frail that we can't even essentially protect ourselves. So those would be my big recommendations. Would be start a process. I mean, Sardinia, for example, in the blue zones in Sardinia, their life expectancy was directly related to the grade of the slope they walked up. The steeper the slope, the longer the life expectancy.
No kidding.
You got 93, 97-year-old men and women walking up 30+ degree slopes, 10 blocks to go to church, 4 blocks over to the market, 4 blocks back home. There's no such thing as elevators there. There's no such thing as assisted care living facilities. Assisted care living is mom and dad move back in with the kids until they pass away. And what does that do? It gives mom and dad a sense of purpose. Even if their only purpose is to go out to the garden and get vegetables for that night's dinner. Right? Or they make, dad's 105 years old and he's still making belts for the community. They have a purpose. They have actually some meaning. And so sense of purpose, mobility into later in life, and whole foods. That's what you get from the blue zones. We should adopt those philosophies here. Not be dogmatic about dieting, right? But eat whole foods. and move our ass, right? I mean, we regulate everything, right? Our air temperature, our lighting, our temperature in our car, the temperature in our office, the temperature in our home. If you want to make your house the surface of the sun at 1 o'clock in the morning, you can just turn all the lights on, right? I mean, it's very unnatural. We've gotten so far out of just the natural circadian rhythm of life. So when Jesse or Jessica was asking about, my tips for living a long life and improving your cognitive function, it would absolutely be mobility, whole foods, focus on sleep.
Interesting. So no more escalators.
Dude, I have a thing, man. My team, like when we travel, like you get on an escalator, you better have a shit ton of baggage that you can't carry up the steps, right?
I can't stand it, dude. I won't take them just because everybody gets on and they just stand there and the phone comes out and they look at it.
Yeah, it's called a mobile walkway.
Flight, wow.
They just get on it, stand.
Yep.
Get on the escalator, stand.
Literally everybody.
You stand.
Everybody does.
Yeah. We do like intermittent standing. It's crazy.
Intermittent standing. Even though I'm excited for the new administration, there's a lot of
I'm
tension in
going
the world.
to
Russia,
forward this a little
Ukraine,
bit.
the border, inflation.
That's a commercial.
Well, Gary,
All
I
right.
want to get into your work with the insurance companies.
Mhm.
All right, I want you all to
and
listen
kind of
to
what
this
that was.
carefully.
What kind of insurance was it? Was it life insurance,
Life
health
insurance and annuities. Mhm. You wouldn't believe the number of financial services instruments that are actually based on mortality. People don't realize how many tens of billions of dollars a year of financial services products are sold and put in force based on when people are going to die. I mean, life insurance being the obvious, reverse mortgages, annuities. So an annuity, for example, is you write a check to the insurance company. They guarantee you an income stream for life. Well, what do you think they use to guarantee how long they're going to pay you? Your mortality. When a life insurance company puts 10 million or 25 million or 50 million or $1 million worth of risk on your life, only one thing matters. How many more months do you have left on Earth? So insurance companies don't care where you are on an actuarial curve, right? Everybody listening to this podcast is on one. If you're a 34-year-old male, you have a life expectancy of X. If you're a 51-year-old female, you have a life expectancy of Y. You go apply for a jumbo life insurance policy, which is the area that I worked in, above $10 million in face value. If you ask the insurance company to put $10 million or 20 or 30 million, 50 million of risk on your life, you better believe that there's somebody in the back room. They're not putting you on an actuarial curve. They're looking at your specific mortality, telling the insurance company how many more months does this person have left on Earth. And I get a lot of flack for this because people say, well, if you could predict, we were talking about this earlier, if you could predict mortality to the month, you would have won a Nobel Prize or you'd be Jesus. But I promise you, I'm not Jesus and I never won a Nobel Prize. But it is some of the most accurate science in the world. If you want to know how accurate insurance companies are at predicting death, just look at what happened during the 2008-2009 financial services crisis. We had 364 banks fail. Not one life insurance company failed. Shit, not one. Right? They're some of the most solvent institutions in the world. And yet they will take tens of millions of dollars worth of risk on one variable. How many more months do you have left on Earth? If you die early, they lose. So they're very accurate at predicting life expectancy. Well, what do they use to predict life expectancy? I'll tell you the three things they don't use, which is modern medicine hates this. They don't use randomized clinical trials. They don't take Big Pharma's trial that says that LDL cholesterol leads to cardiovascular disease, which leads to early death. And so you need to be on this pharmaceutical. They use big data, hundreds of millions of lives. And they know the day, the date, the time, the location, and the cause of death for 370 plus million lives. And so when you know day, date, time, location, and cause of death, you can triangulate that back into the record. And you can say, okay, what are the sequence of events that lead to early death? So if I got 10 years of medical records on you and 10 years of demographic data, we could tell the insurance company how long you had to live to the month. And based on these life expectancies, institutions would take hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in risk. And they were very, very accurate. And so when you look at that data, the epiphany that I had was, I sort of woke up one day and was like, what am I doing? I'm reading medical records for a living. I've read hundreds, if not thousands of times more medical records than a practicing physician because they're practicing medicine. They're not reading records. I just read records. I'm not a physician for the record. I'm not licensed to practice medicine. I'm a human biologist. But I just read medical records for a living, thousands and thousands of medical records. And we would put these into a model and we would use it to predict the onset of death. And what became glaringly apparent was that the reason why the majority of people are not living longer, healthier, happier, more fulfilling lives are because of something called modifiable risk factors. So had it not been against the law for me to pick up the phone and contact the patient or contact the client, I could have on average added 7 years to those people's lives.
No kidding.
No question. Because we have lost faith in humanity and mankind and the body's ability to heal itself and the expression of deficiency in the body. So for example, if you were to pull the blood of all of your listeners, you'd find that there's hundreds of vitamins in their bloodstream. Their body can only make one. When God made us, he made us with the ability to make one vitamin, a single vitamin. So how important do you think this vitamin is to human health? if it's the only one that we make on our own, okay, this vitamin is called vitamin D3, called calciferol. We make it from sunlight and cholesterol. You don't need to eat. You don't need to drink. You don't need to do anything. You need to expose your skin to sunlight and have cholesterol in your bloodstream to make vitamin D3. So 50% of the world's population is clinically deficient in this nutrient. 85% of the African American and Latino populations, darker complected populations, clinically deficient in this nutrient.
You all hear that? 85% of what they call the African American population is clinically deficient in vitamin D. And I've told you all this over and over again. That's why I created the vitamin D product. And listen to what he said. He said, I want y'all to listen to this because you start to get the cascade effect of what's going on. He told you all how vitamin D is made, and this is a fact. The vitamin D is made from sunlight hitting your skin and interacting with cholesterol, and the cholesterol then becomes vitamin D, which is the main nutrient for the immune system to ward off diseases. It's really one of the main markers for human health. Well, what happens if all of your relatives and you are on statin drugs, which are anti-cholesterol drugs, which is lowering your cholesterol? That means that when you go out into the sun, you're going to make less vitamin D because you have less cholesterol. Do you see what's happening? So you're on statin drugs and your cholesterol is not what it's really supposed to be. And you go out into the sun and you can't even make the vitamin D that your body is supposed to make naturally. So you see how these problems keep on going? So let's continue what he's saying. This is very important what he's saying. And I like to put in different voices because I don't want to be the only one saying these things, but I want to show you all that there are people who are on the same page and they're getting results because of the approach to health is going to be results based and not based on what the pharmaceutical companies are talking about. We want to look at these outcomes, and expertise should be based on outcomes and the quality of results and consistency of results, as opposed to people's titles or whatever they're associated with or what have you. And a lot of times what we've been duped into believing is that someone can come on TV and say that they're associated with XYZ hospital or this and that, and you believe everything that they say, right? But ask them their results in reversing disease and it becomes quiet, crickets, right? And we have to judge people based on their results. So here we go. Let's keep going. He said very clearly the deficiencies in vitamin D. I'm going to rewind it just a little bit so we can catch the sentence. All right, here we go.
That we make on our own. Okay, this vitamin is called vitamin D3, called calciferol. We make it from sunlight and cholesterol. You don't need to eat. You don't need to drink. You don't need to do anything. You need to expose your skin to sunlight and have cholesterol in your bloodstream to make vitamin D3. So 50% of the world's population is clinically deficient in this nutrient. 85% of the African American and Latino populations, darker complected populations, clinically deficient in this nutrient. So what happens when you're missing the most important, in my opinion, the most important single raw material in the human body? Well, vitamin D3 deficiency was the second leading cause of morbidity in COVID. Vitamin D3 deficiency is highly linked to brittle bone disease, osteopenia, osteoporosis, autoimmune conditions, also compromised immune systems. And so here's a nutrient that we make on our own. It's very easy to supplement with, by the way. And deficiency in this nutrient has this all of these expressions of these different diseases. So, your listeners might not be aware that the number one killer of human beings in the world is cardiovascular disease. The number two killer of human beings in the world is cancer. The number three killer of human beings in the world is modern medicine. It's medical error.
Number three?
The number three killer of human beings, the third leading cause of death, is medical error.
I've told you all this over and over again, right? I just let other people say it so that you all can get reinforced in what I'm saying. He laid it out. Number one, heart disease. Number two would be cancer. And then number three is medical error or iatrogenics, death by doctor. So he's saying it freely on YouTube. And so I'm just replaying this for you all to be able to see it. Sean Edwards, you want to call in? I have pinned the link on my Facebook page. So you can go to my Facebook page and you'll see the pinned link for you to be able to call in. All right. All right. Let's keep going.
If you want to look up the 2016 study, it was done by Harvard University. Just Google 2016 Harvard University study on medical error. It was repeated by Johns Hopkins, I think, in 2019, and it got worse, so they published the Harvard study. So What does this mean? It means that medical error is the third leading cause of death. And now, when you realize medical error is the third leading cause of death, it's like, wow, that's kind of shocking. Until you realize that it's the third leading cause of death in the industry designed to prevent death. Like if you translated that to any other industry, it'd be laughable, right? I mean, if you sold home security systems, but you were the third leading cause of home invasion, you'd probably be out of business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you were a roofer, well, you were the third leading cause of roof collapse. You know, it'd be laughable if we applied that to any other industry. But this is where we go to get our advice on how to be healthy, optimally healthy, when we should be going there for catastrophic medicine. We're very good at heart attacks, hemorrhages, gunshot wounds, knife wounds, broken arms. We're very, very good at crisis medicine. What we're not good at is keeping people healthy. And so just to take this one step further. So you have this nutrient, vitamin D3, which we get from sunlight and cholesterol. We've been totally taught to fear the sun, right? The truth is most of us are not getting enough sun. It's not we're getting too much sun. We're not getting enough sun. We've been taught to just absolutely shield ourselves from the sun. And what's interesting, if you actually overlay the incidence of skin cancer with the parabolic rise in the use of sunscreens, these are superimposable, right? Since 2018, 23 brands of sunscreen have been pulled from the market for directly causing skin cancer. And yet we've been taught to fear the sun. And so we don't get sunlight, our D3 drops. You know, like we developed sayings around this, like, don't go outside in the wintertime, you'll catch a cold. Okay, there's no such thing as catching a cold. First of all, that's a fallacy. Going outside in the wintertime is substantially safer than going outside in the summertime because there's a lot more pathogens in warm weather than there are in cold weather. There's not bacteria lying around the surface of a 15-degree handrail waiting to infect you. The reason why we associate cold with getting sick is because when it's cold, we layer up. When we layer up, we get less sun. When we get less sun, our D3 drops. When our D3 drops, our immune system's compromised. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it's just the opposite. It's the antithetical way that we've been taught to think.
What is this? How is this? Is this through marketing? Is that how we've
I
been
mean, if
taught?
you think about it, yeah, absolutely. It's through marketing. You know, a lot of this is fear-based marketing. I mean, I don't want to get cancer. So I'm going to put bisphenols and phthalates and all kinds of things on my skin to stop the sun from reaching my skin. But you got to realize your skin is not a barrier. It's a gateway. So if you put it on your skin, you should be prepared to eat it. I wouldn't put anything on your skin that you wouldn't eat. And so when you think about the amount of disruption that comes from chemicals just being on the skin, entering the bloodstream, it wreaks all kinds of havoc. But what I saw when I was at the insurance agent, when I was in the mortality space, was in the record, you would see this clinical deficiency in vitamin D3, long-term deficiencies in vitamin D3. You can see it in the blood. Eventually, these people will present with rheumatoid arthritis-like symptoms. So what happens when you have a clinical deficiency in vitamin D3 for a prolonged period of time? Well, your immune system's compromised, first of all. The second thing that happens is you start to develop rheumatoid arthritis-like symptoms. The soles of your feet are sore and achy when you get out of bed in the morning to walk to the bathroom and take your first pee. You wake up in the morning, you feel like you had a really hard workout the night before when you haven't. Your knees, your hips, your shoulders, and your low back start to ache constantly. Eventually, it's hard to even make a really tight fist. Well, if you go to the wrong primary care physician and you describe those symptoms, they're going to tell you that you have rheumatoid arthritis. Do you know how many thousands of times I saw diagnoses of chronic condition like rheumatoid arthritis with no testing, no RA factors, no blood work, no SED rates? They would just say, you know what, Sean, based on what you're telling me, you got rheumatoid arthritis. But don't worry, I'm going to put you on a corticosteroid. Okay? And then a corticosteroid, not steroid like muscles, a steroid for anti-inflammation like methotrexate or prednisone or methylprednisone. So now they put you on a steroid. The sad thing is for a period of time, it works. Pain goes away, right? But steroids, first they're anti-inflammatory, but then they eat your joint like a termite. So it was so predictable that we knew that 6 years and 1 day after you started taking corticosteroids, you were going to have a joint replacement. And as soon as you had a joint replacement, you were going to reduce your ability to be mobile. As your mobility reduced, I could bring in all the diseases that exacerbate with reduced mobility. So now you had a vitamin D3 deficiency, got diagnosed with a disease you didn't have, put on a medication that wasn't required. 6 years later, forced a surgery that was unnecessary. That surgery reduced your mobility. As your mobility dropped, all the diseases came from your future to your present. You succumbed to a disease you never would have had because of a condition that you did not have, because of medication that wasn't required, because of a simple nutrient deficiency.
Holy shit. So
Did y'all hear that? This is very important. Like, this is very important, and this is why I'm playing this podcast for you all, because this guy was basically in the insurance company, and they deal with actuarial science. The only way insurance company can make money, particularly life insurance, is they can accurately predict when their insured is going to die, because they need to know how many payments they're going to get from you, how many months of payments they're going to get from you, because they aggregate everyone's payments to have their pool of money to pay out when people die. So it's very important that they're able to predict when people are going to die. And so what they did was they can look at you and tell if you have a vitamin D3 deficiency. They know that from that deficiency, 6 years out, you're going to get osteoporosis or some type of bone issue, which is going to require you to get on more medications that's going to then immobilize you. And then they can literally count from those months of being on that medication when you're going to die, almost to the day. Okay? This is what he's talking about. And this, I need you all to understand this, is that the insurance companies are able to predict people's death just based on your nutrient deficiencies and the medications that you're taking. Okay? This is why I wanted to play this for you all. Okay? This is very important. So I'm going to play a little bit of that as we continue. I'm going to go a little bit back.
So it was so predictable that we knew that 6 years and 1 day after you started taking corticosteroids, you were going to have a joint replacement.
6 years
And as soon as you had a
day.
joint replacement, you were going to reduce your ability to be mobile. As your mobility reduced, I could bring in all the diseases that exacerbate with reduced mobility. So now you had a vitamin D3 deficiency, got diagnosed with a disease you didn't have, put on a medication that wasn't required. 6 years later, forced a surgery that was unnecessary. That surgery reduced your mobility. As your mobility dropped, all the diseases came from your future to your present. You succumbed to a disease you never would have had because of a condition that you did not have, because of medication that wasn't required, because of a simple nutrient deficiency.
Holy shit. So it's a snowball effect.
It's a snowball effect. But had I been able to pick up the phone, I get goosebumps even just telling you the stories, but because I think about it a lot. Had I been able to just pick up the phone and call these people and say, hey, listen, I'm not a doctor. Stop taking the methotrexate. Take 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3 with 80 micrograms of K2. Wait 3 months. Then I could have a demonstrative impact on these people's lives. And so,
See, but he couldn't do that. So he saw all these people with these problems, and these problems were really due to vitamin D3 insufficiency that was never identified and told them. So they were just rushed on these pharmaceuticals. He was seeing these people's files, and he just wanted to be able to call them and say, listen, just take vitamin D3 plus K2. But he couldn't do it because of the HIPAA laws. So he literally was able to look at people's files when he was working in an insurance company, and he'd be able to predict when people were going to die. And he wouldn't be able to call them to intervene to say, hey, man, just go to herbalresults.net and buy the vitamin D3 plus K2 and take that, and you're going to have your problem solved. But he couldn't do that. He literally would just watch people die based on their case files. Okay. And he says it gives him goosebumps to talk about. And that's why he got out of the insurance business. But we'll go a little further.
did not have because of medication that wasn't required, because of a simple nutrient deficiency.
Holy shit. So it's a snowball effect.
It's a snowball effect. But had I been able to pick up the phone, I get goosebumps even just telling you the stories, but because I think about it a lot. Had I been able to just pick up the phone and call these people and say, hey, listen, I'm not a doctor. Stop taking the methotrexate. Take 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3 with 80 micrograms of K2. Wait 3 months. Then I could have a demonstrative impact on these people's lives. And so at some point, I just abruptly resigned from that industry. And I went home and told my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, I said, hey, I want to quit my job today, first of all. Thought I'd throw that at you. And I want to start a wellness clinic. I want to start a functional medicine clinic. She's like, you're not even a doctor. I was like, I'll find a doctor. And I did. Dr. Campermore, if you're listening, in Naples, Florida. He was one of the longest practicing anesthesiologists in Naples, Florida. And thank God for him, because he took a bet on me.
If you don't mind, I'd like to divulge a little bit more into that because
Sure.
And we don't have to. I don't, we don't want to. But when I went on your podcast, you kind of told me the story a little bit more in depth, and I just want to say, like, it's very commendable and very noble of you how you left the insurance company.
Yeah.
And it sounded like it came down to a single patient, or maybe not a patient, but a one of the insurance customers. And so, could you go into that a little bit more in depth?
Listen closely to this, y'all.
Yeah. It's a tough one. But I was working on a case on a woman that was she had a large life insurance policy. She was actually selling. And she was transferring care between cardiologists. She was in the Midwest, and she was transferring to her winter home in Miami. And there's something called the Medical Information Bureau, and it's meant to catch like people that are pain medication surfing, narcotic surfing, or contraindications between meds. And the physician in Miami had put a script into the record that was a contraindication, meaning it was going to cause a high chance of causing a thrombolytic event, like a blood clot, a stroke, an embolism. And so I saw what she was taking. I saw what was waiting for her. And so I went into human resources, at the time and said, hey, I'm contacting this lady, right? I mean, we were not allowed to have any contact with the client, the applicant, the treating physician, for the right reason. Again, I'm not licensed to practice medicine. So, having me call up and try to make an opinion on their medical care isn't right. But they were very, not only disinterested in having me contact that patient, I got threatened with prosecution. And so I knew at some point that this lady was going to get on a plane, go to her winter home. She was going to pick up that script and she was going to have a thrombolytic event. So she was going to either have an embolism, blood clot, stroke, some kind of clotting event. And just the callousness with which I was told not to contact the patient and that I would be potentially prosecuted if I did. That was the final straw for me. That's really what forced my resignation. And I think about that lady a lot. I still to this day don't know what happened. I don't know if the physician caught it, but I also think about how many years I gave to that industry, and I was just so myopic. I was very selfish. I was just concerned about trying to be wealthy, and I was doing very well in that industry, so I had kind of a lot of accolades and things, but I was doing nothing in service for humanity. I had real knowledge on how to help people live healthier, happier, longer, more fulfilling lives. And I was just watching these train wrecks happen. It was like sitting behind a thick glass wall and just watching blind people walk into traffic. And when you read a certain number of medical records, you see these patterns start to emerge, and you're like, you could just start the record and you just knew exactly where the record was going to end. Like, oh, here comes the joint replacement. Oh, here comes they're on the beta blocker. There comes the blood thinner, and the next thing to follow is the antidepressant because of the cholesterol medication. And now they're on an SSRI, and there comes the suicidal ideations. There comes the therapy. Like you could just map out the consequences in the medical record and say, gosh, this person had a little bit of elevated level of LDL cholesterol. Then they got put on a statin. It started to drive the cholesterol down. Then the brain fog and the short-term recall and the cognitive function starts to decline. And then the depression starts to creep in. And now they're on an SSRI. And as they become less mobile, their hematocrit, viscosity of their blood seems to go up. So then they're on the blood thinner, and the pressure starts to rise. And then they're on a beta blocker, an ACE inhibitor, a calcium channel blocker. And the next thing you know, it's just this massive chemical soup. Right, just trying to regulate all of these processes in the body, trying to regulate blood pressure over here and mood over here and blood viscosity over here and pain over here and cholesterol over here. And nobody's ever really studied the consequences of putting all of this into the same biome. We study things in isolation in medicine very often. Randomized clinical trials are isolated trials where we're only looking at one medication for one outcome in a control group, but we're actually not studying human beings or their cells in the environment that they exist, right? These cells exist in community.
This is a very important point that he brings up. When they do clinical trials, it's for like one drug. But most people are taking 3, 4, 5, 10 drugs, right? And there's not really studies done for a soup of drugs that most people are taking and how that affects people. These drugs are studied in isolation. And this is a big point that he's making. So this is why this is a very important interview for those people who are actually able to extract the gems, because I see this every day. And the metaphor that he used of literally being behind a glass wall and watching blind people walk into traffic is exactly the customer base that I deal with when people send me emails and they say, I've got kidney failure, or I've got this, or I got that. I already know that there's certain drugs that they're taking, and the people are taking it blindly because they're not given informed consent and had no idea that the high blood pressure, their medication that they were taking, or any of these drugs actually has the side effect listed as kidney failure, right? So it's literally blind people walking into traffic. That's literally what it is. And so he's making some very good points.
You can't take a cell out of the body, put it in a petri dish, look how it behaves in a lab, and then assume when you put that cell back into the body that it's going to behave the same way. Nothing is further from the truth. And this is why we run in these 20-year cycles where we do a randomized clinical trial, drug gets approved, we push the drug on the market. Then 10 years later, we realize we made a really grave mistake. We got hundreds of thousands of people dying from this drug. We got hundreds of thousands of people now addicted to this drug, and now they can't get the drug. So now they're on the street. Like they say that opiates is a rich man's addiction and heroin's a poor man's addiction. And it's very true. You know, a lot of people didn't wake up one day and decide they were going to be an addict. They woke up one day and wanted to feel normal. And in the search for normalcy, they developed an addiction. And now they're running from a low. They're not running towards a high. So and so I saw these cycles and I was like, this shit is all wrong. I mean, you know, if I could have just picked up the phone and called half of these people and said, you need to stop taking this, in my opinion, stop taking the corticosteroid, get off the statin, because we use big data. So there was a lot of popularity of marginally increased levels, for example, of LDL cholesterol, which has been vilified, in my opinion, wrongfully. You know, and if you had high levels of LDL cholesterol, you were automatically had this crazy high risk for cardiovascular disease. So we would smash the cholesterol down in these really low numbers. We put you on all kinds of cholesterol mitigating drugs. And what we would see, not infrequently, in nearly every case, is you would downstream, you would see the consequences of not having this compound in the body. Cholesterol, by the way, is made by the liver. 85% of the cholesterol in your blood is manufactured by the liver. It doesn't come from diet. Only 15% of the cholesterol in your blood comes from diet. And most people don't realize that cholesterol is not a fuel source. It's a construction material. We use it to build every cell wall, every cell membrane. We use it to make hormones. We use it to make vitamin D3. You make cholecalciferol from cholesterol. So when you drive this down, the majority of the brain is cholesterol. All of a sudden, you start to see cognitive impairment. You see erectile dysfunction. You see hormone dysregulation. Why? Because you make hormones from cholesterol. And yet we're linking it to cardiovascular disease, but there's no clinical evidence that it just seems to jump out of the bloodstream and magically stick to the arterial wall or magically pass through the arterial wall. It has to be called to that location. There has to be an inflammatory cycle. There has to be something that initiates its arrival. You know, cholesterol is kind of like the fireman. It shows up when there's a fire. It gets called to the site of inflammation. It didn't start the fire. So the notion that if we had fewer firemen, we'd have less fires doesn't make any sense. But that's what modern medicine would want you to believe, that if we had fewer firemen, we'd have fewer fires. That's not true. And so we found no correlation between elevated levels of LDL cholesterol and cardiovascular disease or early death. In fact, we found the opposite. We found in most of the centenarians, in fact, all the centenarian death claims that I processed, people living above age 100, without an exception in my career, they had clinically elevated levels of LDL cholesterol at the time of their death, because many of them died in nursing homes. We had blood work on them. So if people that had the highest cholesterol were living the longest, then why were we trying to push this compound down? Well, I mean, cholesterol medication is one of the most profitable pharmaceutical compounds, until the vaccine came along, one of the most profitable compounds to ever hit modern humanity. I mean, in the 50s and 60s, cholesterol levels were in the 260s. That was the optimal level of cholesterol. So if you were to ask me what's the optimal level of cholesterol today, 260. But what do lab results say? Well, LDL cholesterol shouldn't be above 99. As soon as it gets above 99, you get to 120, you're on statin. And now you're taking away one of the compounds that not only forms the brain, but reduces inflammation, which repairs damage in the body, which makes hormones, which makes cell walls and cell membranes and vitamin D3, and you're getting rid of it. Well, there's consequences to that. Right. So this is what I mean. It's like we've gotten so far away. We've created an industrial complex that is built on a profit center of disease. Type 2 diabetes in the United States is a $110 billion industry, $110 billion in profit a year from type 2 diabetes. So just imagine whether or not there's a meeting going on in some boardroom to put that industry out of business. There's not. Right? We want people to suffer over a prolonged period of time. We don't want you to die early. We want you to suffer for a prolonged period of time. And if you look at how pharmaceuticals have crept into the hamster wheel of society, and younger and younger and younger and younger ages now, we start on the hamster wheel of pharma. You come out of the womb and you have barely even taken your first breath. You got erythromycin in your eyes and you're being given a hepatitis B vaccine. Well, what's hepatitis B? It's a sexually transmitted virus, or it's transmitted through intravenous drug usage. What are the chances that a newborn fetus is going to be having sexual intercourse or using IV drugs? None. What are the incidences of hepatitis B in prepubescent teens all the way down to infants? 0. Unless the mother had it at birth, which because you can tissue type them. And I could give you hundreds of examples like this, but we have just bathed our cellular biology in a toxic soup. We are on the pharma bandwagon from the time we come out of the womb. I think there's 79 vaccines on the vaccine schedule now. This time in the 50s, there was 8. We have pandemics of autism, pandemics of chronic disease. We spend $4.5 trillion a year on healthcare, and we are the sickest, fattest, most disease-ridden nation on the planet. We lead the world, not only in medical care spending, but we lead the world in 6 major categories: infant mortality, maternal mortality, the lowest life expectancy at birth of any other civilized nation, the next 60 civilized nations. We lead the world in morbid obesity, type 2 diabetes, and multiple chronic disease in a single biome. And yet we spend $4.5 trillion a year on healthcare. 77%. By the way, I will put the links to any of these quotes that I say, because we're going to get hammered for this by the media. If I make any one of these statements, I'm going to give you the links. You can put it in the show notes.
Thank you.
Right from the Department of Defense, 77% of our military-age men and women cannot pass a simple physical exam to enter the military. 77%. That means 3/4 of our military-age population cannot serve in the military because they are not physically capable of entering military service and
Wow.
passing a basic exam.
Wow.
Why?
I'm gonna stop there. This is an interview that I think everyone, should look at. It is the Sean Ryan Show, Gary Brecka, Brecka. Spend some time and listen to what he's saying, because he's saying a lot of gems in here, a lot of important information. There's a lot of information that I repeat on this show, that I've said on the show several times, but I like to give a wide range of different people's opinions, and to understand that those of us who are actually doing the work of reversing illnesses are actually on the same page when it comes to these things, right? So we have a brother calling in right now, brother Sean Edwards. You there, Sean? It looks like your camera went off. Okay, he's back. You there, Sean? Can you hear me, Sean? I don't think Sean can hear me. You there, Sean? Yeah, can you hear me, Sean? Okay, he's having problems, but yeah, this is what is going on, y'all. And there's a lot of gems. And so it's the Sean Ryan Show, and it is, let me see, episode 163. So y'all gonna wanna check that out to look at the rest. And he says 75% of military-age men and women in America cannot pass the military fitness test to even be admitted into the military armed forces. So it says a lot about the decline of an empire, right? You there, Sean?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, what's up, bro?
How you doing? You remember me?
I'm on top of the world. Of course I remember you, man. How you feeling, bro?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm on top of the world, man. Always good to
Feeling
hear
like-
from you, man.
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah,
Can't
what's
share some
happening?
information with you.
Excuse me? Your mic is kind of your mic is kind of
It's cracking. Hold on a second. Let me see if I
Yeah.
can pick it up. Give me a second. How about now?
That's better. That's
Hold
better.
on.
I can make out what you're saying. What's going on, Brody?
Look, so I was at your event when you were here in Richmond.
Yes, you came to the Richmond lecture that was done about maybe 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, about 4 weeks ago. So I told you then my lab results, because I told you they had diagnosed me with
Kidney
with
failure,
CKD.
right?
Yeah, with
Chronic
stage 4.
kidney disease.
Yeah. So just last Monday, I was scheduled to see endocrinologist for my type 2.
You were scheduled to see what, an endocrinologist? Is that what you said?
Yes, for type 2 diabetes.
Type 2 diabetes, yeah. Your mic is breaking up, so I'm
Okay,
trying to
hold
hear what you're saying, and then I'm trying to reinterpret it back to the audience.
Hold on a minute. Is it still cracking? What do you think?
That's a little bit better. So you went in to see your doctor for type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, that was all part of my protocol for the CKD. So they needed some updated results as far as my A1C was concerned.
Someone's saying to take off your Wi-Fi, and that might make your
Hold on a minute. All right.
yeah, they're saying just take off your Wi-Fi, and that might make it a little bit better in terms of the sound. Let's see if it works.
Right now I'm on the mobile network. It's still high sound now.
Yeah, it's still staticky, but I'm gonna try to make out what you're saying and then repeat it back to people. So you went to go see your doctor for type 2 diabetes.
So the last result they got was back in. It was right before I spoke to you 4 weeks ago. Back in February, like February 13th.
February.
February 13th, I had the blood, got my blood work done.
Mm-hmm.
And around that time, I was still on the medication.
Okay, what medication were you taking for diabetes? Was it metformin,
Majoro, I was on Majoro,
Mounjaro? Okay,
on Lisinopril,
lisinopril,
Rovastatin,
pravastatin. Okay,
Rovastatin.
rovastatin. Yeah, so that's a.
Yeah.
So let me just break down what you were taking. So they gave him a statin lowering drug, rovastatin. They gave him lisinopril, which is for high blood pressure, typically, and that's an ACE inhibitor. And then he was put on Mounjaro, which they give people for diabetes. So they gave him those three cocktails. Okay.
They put me on my nephrologist put me on it was like a a calcium supplement.
Okay.
What they call it, calcium. And got my lab results around February 13th.
Mm-hmm.
My A1C at the time was 13.2.
Okay. So he's saying his A1C in February was 13.2. What does this mean for the people who don't know? So anything 5.7 below is seen as healthy. Anything between 5.8 and 6.4 is seen as 6.3 is seen as pre-diabetic. 6.4 and up is seen as being diabetic. This brother had more than double the score for the threshold. So 13 point, what was it? 13 point what?
13.2 with an average glucose level of 334.
Okay, so short-term glucose was 354 and his A1C was 13.2, which is more than double the threshold of 6.4 to be diagnosed with diabetes. So he has severe diabetes, y'all. Okay, go ahead.
So fast forward, um, when I talked to you, that was around when I talked to you last on the last show. That was April 13th, and you and I discussed the
Yeah,
medication
you
that I'm
called
on.
in, what was April when you called in?
Yeah, it was like,
Yeah,
in fact, I got it in my log. It was April 13th.
April 13th is when you called. Yeah, I remember you
Yep,
calling into the show.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
Started April 13th, and so we had discussed about getting all the medicine. That day,
Mm-hmm.
I stopped taking all the medication.
Okay, that day you stopped the
Yeah,
pharmaceutical.
stopped. It was April 13th.
April
So
13th.
yeah, so I went to, like I said, last Monday I had an appointment with the endocrinologist because they
Okay,
needed me
so
to
last Monday you went to go see your doctor.
a week
Okay,
from the day. Yeah, a week from the day. Last Monday.
last Monday,
Week from the day.
a
They
week
wanted to
ago.
test me, and they was asking me, the medication. They was looking at my file from April, so they saw all the medication that I was on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't tell the doctor that I wasn't on the medication, so I just
Mm-hmm.
let them write it out, let them assume I was still on. The thing about it was, she kept pulling up my record on my stage 4 kidney. So they was asking
Right.
me a series of questions. She kept asking me like the same questions over and over. She asked me, "Was I still working full time?" I told her, "Yes, I'm still working full time." And so she looked confused as she was looking at the chart. And so she says, they're checking my legs, checking for swelling. She said, "Have you been dealing with any swelling?"
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to have occasional leg swelling in my ankle.
Right. So he's saying that he used to have occasional leg swelling in his ankles. His doctor that he went to go see last Monday kept looking at his charts, kept looking because I'm sure she was confused at what she was seeing. And he had
Right.
swelling in his legs, which is one of the byproducts of kidney failure, that you start get swelling in your lower extremities in your limbs. And he used to have that and he no longer had it. And she couldn't understand what's going on. And this happens repeatedly with the people I deal with who do our protocol. So I think I know where the story's going, but keep on going.
Right. So they was filling on my side. She asked me was I having any like aches or pains. I told her no. She said, "Well, feeling any fatigue. I told her, I said, no, I mean, I told you at the last time I told you, I said in 2 weeks I was turning 50. And I told her, I said, I haven't had any fatigue.
Right. So you're not feeling any fatigue.
Yeah. So she was like, she kept looking confused. Then she asked me again, was I still working full time? I was like, yeah, I'm still working full time. I still do 8 to 10 hours.
So she just keeps asking you if you're working full time. That's her question to you. She keeps asking you that.
Yeah, she asked me this 3 times. I'm like, why you keep asking me this 3 times? And now I'm a barber, so you know she's expecting me to be fatigued. She was like, "Are you constantly sitting down at work?" I'm like, "No." So then here's the caveat. This is the one that got her. She asked me, "So have you been having problems urinating?"
She asked you if you're having problems urinating.
Yeah, I have problems urinating. I said, and I told her just like this. I said, I pee like a racehorse. I said, I don't have no problem.
Yeah, you told her you pee like a racehorse. And the reason why she's asking this is because someone with quote unquote chronic kidney disease should be having these problems of swollen limbs and problems urinating, because your kidneys, basically they're saying your kidneys are dead or they're dying. And so you're supposed to show up with all of these problems, but you're not showing up with. So she's confused. That's why clinically, her clinical training, you don't match her clinical training. So she's confused.
Right. Because I heard her when she was looking at her, when she was looking back at her computer, I heard her mention under her breath. She was like, "You're not supposed to be urinating."
She said, "You're not supposed to be what?"
She said, "You're not supposed to be urinating."
You're not supposed to be urinating. So this is very important. Listen very carefully, people. People who are on dialysis, people who have kidney failure, kidney disease, typically cannot urinate. Okay? And a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't know that people who have kidney issues cannot urinate. And then that's why you have to do dialysis, because what dialysis does, it cleans out your blood from the fact that you're not urinating and removing waste from your body. So the dialysis machine replaces your kidneys. And what happens is that typically people cannot urinate. This, I tell you, all this happened to my uncle. My uncle had kidney failure, contacted me and told me he had kidney failure. I was able to identify that it was the high blood pressure medicine, and we replaced it with the olive leaf extract. And this is a man who hadn't urinated for 5 years. And when he took the olive leaf extract and removed the pharmaceutical medication, my uncle called me literally 3 days later and was able to urinate for the first time in 5 years. Okay, so she's confused because everything you're presenting does not match her clinical training. So she's asking you if you can urinate. You say you pee like a racehorse, and her mind is being blown. Someone who has chronic kidney disease should not be peeing like a racehorse, like a healthy person. So keep on going.
So now, mind you, brother, my EGFR was that, I'm not sure what it is now because they didn't put in the order to find out what that was, but it was at 16 at the time.
Okay, now, that's your filtration rate.
Right. So now, I asked her after they did the blood work, when would I get my results back for my A1? So she said it will take a couple of days. I said, okay, fine.
Okay, so let me just stop you there. Let me just stop you there to translate for people who are having a hard time hearing. He asked his doctor when he's going to get his A1C results, which is basically letting him know what level of diabetes that he has, in terms of, like, he's dealing with a 13.2. So he wants to see if his A1C has improved. And she said it'll take a couple of days. Okay.
Okay. So Wednesday, I get a notification on my phone stating that in my chart that my results came in. So I pulled it up. This was Wednesday. So 2 days after the appointment. My A1C now is at 5.8.
Did you all hear that? The brother's A1C is at 5.8. Okay? This is a big deal, y'all. And he's off of the medications. This is from April till now, because he first called on this show in April. And I told the brother exactly what to do. Now, here's the deal. The deal is this. I can tell you what to do and tell you the products that I make for you to take, but the rest is up to you, right? The rest is up to you to actually follow it and to follow the dietary recommendations. And if you do it, you get these types of results. And so I know the brother's calling. I could already tell he had good news because when he called, I could see he had a smile on his face. So I knew I was going to hear something, which I usually hear in terms of people reversing their illnesses. And so now we have in front of you all right now, the people watching, a brother who's a listener, watcher on the show who had diabetes, high blood pressure, and kidney failure, now being able to urinate, no swelling, A1C has now gone to a healthy level. His is 5.8. I already told y'all that 5.7 and down is seen as healthy. He is 0.1 away from being non-diabetic completely. Right now, really, he's closer to the 5.7 than the 6.4. So I would say within a few days, he'll probably be down to 5.7 or lower. And definitely by the time you go again for your next checkup, you will be below 5.7. But 5.7, 5.8, essentially your diabetes has been eradicated. So it's gone from 13.2, y'all, to 5.8. And this is in 3 months. 3 months. Okay? 3 months. And if it's done for this brother, it can be done for you too. And the point of the matter is that the brother listened, he came to the lectures, and this is the deal. He was explained why he had diabetes. He understood what insulin is. Once it was explained to him, and I was able to explain this to him like an adult, he was able to then use his brain to understand all the things he was doing that was feeding his problem. And now he discontinued those things and he's getting the results now. And he's going to be able to have a greater quality of life where he's not going to have to go on dialysis because he can urinate on his own. His filtration rate is good. And we're going to start seeing his doctors be more and more confused as to how the hell this guy is getting a turnaround when they don't see it in all their other patients. I'm sure your conversation with your doctor is going to be very interesting. But you can continue, Sean.
And not to mention my glucose, my average glucose level since April, because that was on the chart as well, is 123.
Okay, so his average glucose, which is a short-term glucose, is 123, and anything 130 and lower is seen as healthy. That's the short-term glucose. This is somebody with what was your average number? 300 what?
It was 334 in February.
334, and now his average glucose has been cut by more than half. It's under 130, which is really the number you want to look at. That's the short-term glucose. Any of these tests that he be taking, 5.8 A1C, 123 glucose, that's a healthy person's numbers.
Yeah.
Literally, that's a healthy person's numbers. Now, keep on talking. Just keep on talking, bro.
All right, listen, so now mind you, I put my wife on the protocol too. Now my wife been on it. I've been on it a few weeks longer than she has.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's taking everything that I'm taking. Because I remember you told me to take the olive 3 times a day, so I've been taking it 3 times a day.
Okay, you've been taking the olive leaf extract 3 times a day. What else you been doing?
The vitamin D.
Vitamin D3 plus K2.
And the
magnesium, zinc, and selenium.
4 droplets.
Yes.
So like 4 droplets is what,
50,000.
50,000. So I take that, take a 4 droplet every day. And the magnesium twice a day.
Right, and you take the magnesium twice a day.
And also, because my wife got on, but I told her, I'm also, to add this, I think I told you last time, I was down close to 60 pounds. Now I'm down 70 pounds.
Okay, so the brother has lost, so since April, you've lost 70 pounds.
Well, since December.
Since December, you've lost. So in the last 7 months, you've lost 70 pounds. It's an average of
Yes.
10 pounds a month.
Yes. In December,
That's
well,
excellent.
it was funny. So I went to the week before last. I went to the doctor with my wife, and she got on the scale, and I turned around. And I said, "Well, let me get on the scale." She said, "Boy, get off the scale. This ain't your appointment." I said, "I just want to see what my weight was at." So I was at 257. Now, mind you, in December I was at 308.
You were at 308 in December, and you're at
Yeah.
257 now.
Right, I was at 257, and I was mad. She said, "What are you mad about?" I was like, I don't like the way I feel at 257. So I told her, I said, I'm gonna do what Brother Rue told me to do about the fasting. So I went on a 3-day fast, nothing but
So you
lime
did a 3-day water fast.
I did a 3-day water fast. So Monday, that was a week before. That was a week before last week. So we was So Monday, I went in and got on the scale at my appointment. I was at 244.
244. So between then, so 257 to 244, that is 13 pounds.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you what's funny. Get ready for this. Every time I do a 3-day water fast, actually 3 to 4 day water fast, I'll do usually every 3 months, I'll do it. Every time I'm finished with the fast, so the first 36 hours, I lose 5 pounds like clockwork. And by the end of my fast, by 100 hours, or whether it's 3 days, so 4 days is 98 hours, and 72 hours is 3 days. It's either 3 or 4 days. I lose 13 pounds, just like you did. At the end of my water fast, I always lose 13 pounds, just like you did. So this is like clockwork, man.
Right. And I know, because like sometimes, and like now, I think with the olive being so much in my system, even when I eat, let's say I mess around, I eat a slice of cake or something, and usually I'm doing intermittent fast during the week anyway.
Okay, so every now and then, he's saying every now and then he'll slip up, maybe eat a slice of cake, but then he'll get right back on it.
Every day is constant.
Right. It's not every day like it might have been, yeah.
And all of it, whatever I ate wasn't even 15 minutes. That thing was like, it was like flushing me out. Like,
okay, so you'll take the olive leaf and it'll just flush you out afterwards. That's very good, man.
Before, and then turn around and eat something like anything with like maybe a high sugar content, it don't stay in me at all.
Right.
It don't stay in me at all.
Okay, that's great, man. How tall are you?
5'9".
5'9"?
Yeah.
So 5'9" at 327 is crazy work, man. Like you were holding a lot of weight on you at 5'9", 327. Yeah. The fact 70 pounds off of a 5'9" frame is very serious, man. You've prolonged your life tremendously because here's the deal, y'all. Old age selects against obesity. What I mean by that is that you don't see many 70, 80-year-old people who are obese. The reason is because they die before they hit that age. Old age selects against obesity. So you see people who are 90, 100 years old, they're usually very thin. And what it is because obesity does not creep into old age. You won't see it. So the fact that you've lost 70 pounds and at 5'9", you keep doing this with the intermittent fasting and the time-based eating, and like every 3 months you do a 3-day water fast, I would say by this time next year, you probably will be down to 170. Okay. You keep doing this because you're at 250 now or 240 now, or you say 230 something?
Right about, let's say, I'm right about like 245.
All right. Yeah. I want to get you down to under 200. Okay. And we can do that. You just keep doing what you're doing. And 5'9", we really want to get you to 180. And we can do that within a year if you just keep doing what you're doing. Because right now, your pace is 10 pounds a month that you're losing. And I'm telling you, if you keep doing what you're doing, the way that you're doing it, you will get to that goal of 180 at 5'9". You'll be back at your fighting weight, bro. Like
Yeah,
you'll be
because
back at your fighting
that
weight.
was my that was my high school weight. Where it's like
Yes.
187.
Yes.
That was the heaviest. 197 was the heaviest. That was my like last year of high school. My junior year,
Yes.
I was around about 180.
Yep.
180.
We can get you back. And I always tell people if they just follow what I'm saying by the things that I named earlier, and I'll do it again.
Right.
I'm gonna name it. I'm gonna do it again. This is exactly what this brother was doing. It's nothing complicated. Number one, time restricted eating. You take a time window every day that you eat. It should be no more than 8 hours. If you're overweight, if you're suffering from high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, any of these things, it should really be struck down to 4 hours a day. You can pick those 4 hours, but it has to be 4 continuous hours. You can go 2 to 6, you can go 3 to 7, you can go noon to 4. But if you do 4 hours, this works. Okay. And during that time, you eat as much food as you want that is non-inflammatory food, that is natural food from earth, right? In other words, not from a laboratory, natural food. Okay. All right. You can eat as much as you want in that 4 hour window. You stick to that 4 hour window. Then you take the olive leaf extract 3 times a day. This is exactly what this brother did. And then you take the vitamin D. You take at least 1 full dropper a day. And then you take the magnesium, zinc, selenium, which is this product here that the brother's taking. You can take 2 capsules a day. You can take 1 in the morning, 1 at night, or take 2 at night. I think the best combination is to take, so the vitamin D and the magnesium, they work together. They help each other absorb each other. Vitamin D3 is D3 plus K2. Anytime you take high dose D3, it must have K2 in it. K2 is a transporter of excess calcium directly to the bones. Magnesium helps vitamin D absorb, and vitamin D helps magnesium absorb. And most people are deficient in vitamin D and magnesium. Magnesium plays a role in insulin sensitivity. It plays a role in lowering blood pressure as well. So the olive leaf is going to detoxify you, kill parasites, and it's going to reverse the inflammation that your body has been suffering from years. So you're going to have the olive leaf extract. I should have the bottle here somewhere, but you're going to have the olive leaf extract. Here it is. So these are the 3 items that you need that I think everybody could benefit from. These 3. Olive leaf extract, vitamin D3, and the magnesium. This is what this brother is taking, okay? Anybody with any condition, cancer, diabetes, herpes, high blood pressure, seizures, autoimmune illnesses, these are the 3 baseline products that you need to take. Now, we've got the diet part that I talked about in terms of intermittent fasting. If you want to take it to a different level, every 3 months or at least twice a year, you should do a 3-day water fast. It changes your life completely, and it changes your relationship with food. You no longer become a slave to food once you fast it. I'm sure you can talk about your fasting, Brother Sean. Like, it's a mental process, but conquering it makes you have a whole different relationship with food. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
You get better discipline too. It helps me as far as from the mental standpoint, from just having mental clarity. That's another thing too. I noticed by taking the protocol too. My mentality has been a lot sharper, been a lot clearer. Not as cloudy. I used to go to bed like with these racing thoughts. And I remember
Right. Your
last
thoughts.
time we had a conversation. You told me too that little Cinepril, what was causing that too, as far as like nightmares and clutter, foggy. You almost
Yes.
feel
The
like
lisinopril.
hit the
Yes.
wall. 'Cause
Yeah. Brain
I
fog.
had another friend of mine. He was taking lisinopril. He said he was having the same symptoms I was having
Mm-hmm.
from the lisinopril. And
Yep.
then let me add it. I'll tell you this. Going back to my wife, she went and got all her results too. So now, mind you, she's only been taking, because she said that the olive oil was real strong. So she's been taking a capful a day. So I thought
Mm-hmm.
you might need to bump up to 2. She said, I'm more going to bump it up to 2. Now, she started around about April and stopped taking her meds. She was pretty much on the same medication that I was on.
Mm-hmm.
but she was also taking a high dosage of Mounjaro.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago, the day I told you I went with her to her appointment, and they did her lab work. Now, mind you, they told her, due to her family history, her mother dealt with like cardiovascular disease. A lot of her family members, her aunts, they dealt with
Cardiovascular disease.
So, what was interesting was she went and got her blood work done, and I told them right then, I said, tell them to take your vitamin D. Let's see where your vitamin D is at. Now, mind you, she's taking the same product. She's taking the vitamin D as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back in March, February, she was dealing with a lot of like sinus, more deal with sinus, asthma, and that sort of thing, and she was getting sick. So they showed her results when she was talking to the doctor. They said her vitamin D back then was 46.
46.
46.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fast forward 2 weeks ago. They're trying to find out why they can't find anything in her chart as far as ailment. She has no signs of cardiovascular disease. Her blood pressure, now mind you, my wife is around 5'2". Now, to them, she's considered overweight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, her blood pressure, now mind you, she's not on any medication either. Her blood pressure was like 118 over 69. 118
Recently.
over 72. They tested it twice.
This is recently.
2 weeks ago.
Is 118 over 69. And what was it before last time she went for a checkup? Because they put her on blood pressure meds, right?
It was elevated. It was elevated because she said when she went last time, it was elevated. It was like 150 over 80, something around those type of numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So now this
Right.
time it was like 120, 119
Yeah.
over 72.
Yeah, she has the blood pressure of a 16-year-old athlete.
Right. And she had never been an athlete. So, and her A1C, now mind you, she was on the highest majority, well, not the highest, it's one level high. She's one level less. She's at 12.5. Now, she hasn't been taking the majority at the same time I stopped. Her A1C was 6.5.
Her A1C was what?
6.5.
6.5.
Mm-hmm. And her average glucose level was like 130.
Okay, what was her A1C before?
6.9.
Okay, so it's dropped a little bit, not as dramatically as yours.
Now, mind you, she hasn't done any intermittent fast like I do.
Okay.
She didn't do a 3-day fast.
Right. She didn't do the fast, and she doesn't take the olive leaf 3 times a day. She only takes it once.
She don't take olive leaf because she thought about it was so strong. She said she can only down like 1 calorie a day. I was like, all right,
Got
we'll
it.
try to bump it to 2. You know what I mean?
Got it. Try to bump her to 2. Yeah. Because we want to get her number as close to 5.7 as possible.
Yeah, the other problem was,
which you're able to show that is able to be done. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because she got a little upset at me the other day because she said, how in the world is your A1C lower than mine?
Well, because you're doing the protocol more seriously than she is. That's why.
And that's what I told her. I tried to tell her. I was like, but if you start working on the protocol, your numbers will be just like mine. Then here's the catch. And I told her it was going to happen. And they sent her a message the very next day. And I said, what is your vitamin D level now? Her vitamin D level was 152.
Of course, 100 points, just like what I told you.
Right. And they sent a message in the chart the very next day. Said that
they said it's too high.
It's too high. That's what the note said. And her chart said it was too high.
Yeah.
I said, well, here's what. Too high.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Too high. They're trained that anything above 100 is too high. But really the magic number is 150 based on the studies that I have. But they're going to tell you it's too high, and they're going to tell you the risk is hypercalcemia, too much calcium.
Yes.
But you're
Yeah,
not going to have
yeah.
that. You're not going to have that if you have vitamin K2 along with your D3. It's actually extremely rare, but you won't have it if you have it with the K2. Now, here's the deal. The way that you confirm this, and I don't know what these people are doing, is check her calcium levels.
Yeah.
And the calcium levels are going to be normal. You see
Yeah,
what I'm saying? So
everything
there,
was normal.
yes, the calcium levels are normal. So why are you saying that there's a risk for hypercalcemia? See what I'm saying? Like you can actually prove it by just testing the calcium
Right.
levels. And I have like my vitamin D3 level is 300, but my calcium's normal.
They put it in my chart. I just so happen. I said, let me check because I look at my chart to see what my vitamin was pretty.
Mhm.
Mine was pretty up like this. In April, well, February, April, mine was like at 102. Right now, mine's 200.
Yeah.
And I don't never get it.
No, you're not going to, because your immune system is prime now. Your immune system is prime. And I just tell people the magic number is 150. They want to keep you at 100 or lower. They want to keep you lower. Really, they want to keep you at 50. But what happens is that's not the level you need to reverse diseases. So the vitamin D levels that they're telling you that they're normalizing for people is for rickets. It's not for your immune system. It's for rickets, which is the lowest number that you need to stop having this bone problem of rickets. But for optimization of your immune system, the number is 150. I'll say it over and over to people, so this is clear. I mean, my vitamin D levels are high, and I don't get sick either, and I have all types of energy. I just feel like a different person, man. And then with the magnesium as well. So it's real out there. Like a lot of these problems are seriously just nutrient deficiencies. And like vitamin B deficiency as well. Like there's a lot of people who are insulin resistant who have diabetes, and it's really because they're magnesium deficient or vitamin B deficient. So I've got people, I was even one of the people, I can share this with you all, some years ago. Do you know that I couldn't eat mangoes without getting sick? Because I was insulin resistant. And my body was not able to process sugars from any source very well at all. As a matter of fact, the men on my father's side of my family, about 80% tend to die from diabetes. So I believe genetically, the men in my family have weak pancreases and livers. And so with me, I had to cut out sugar very early in my life because I was pre-diabetic. So I know what it feels like to be diabetic, because you got to urinate all the time, and every urination that you got to do is like the most important urination that you got to do. And I'm talking about like sometimes like 3 times in an hour, you feel like you got to urinate, and it's you get tingling in your feet, in your hands, you get headaches, you want to sleep all the time. Your gums start to bleed. I know what it's like to be diabetic because I have it in my family, and I was pre-diabetic myself. Come to find out, when I start taking the olive leaf, I'm able to eat mangoes or sweet fruits. When I added the magnesium, it's like the problem went away. So then you can also add vitamin B, methylated vitamin B, which I'll probably make a vitamin B product for Herbal Results sometime soon. But those are like kind of like the essentials. And another mineral that you would need for diabetes would be chromium as well. So some people are just chromium deficient, or but the majority of people are magnesium deficient. And if you solve that problem, you're able. So like right now, I can share with y'all, like I'm eating mangoes like crazy, and I get no bad effects. Like, look at this. You see this mango here? See how big it is? So it's deep mango season in Florida, y'all. And this is called a Lancetilla mango, or Lancetilla mango. And it's about 5 pounds. and it's as big as a human head. I just got these yesterday from a neighbor of mine down the street. Uh, Big up Ethan, that's his name, right? Down the street, he has a tree that has these large mangoes, man. So I can eat these mangoes all day long and I don't get any of the diabetic side effects. My blood sugar doesn't go crazy. It's because I solved for my problem with the olive leaf extract, vitamin D3, and the magnesium. It solved my problem. No insulin necessary, no metformin, no Manjaro. A lot of this stuff is just deficiencies, man. You make a little change to your diet so you become metabolically efficient, and that's it, man. Um, but yeah, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, bro. I'm proud of the results that you got because you've been on it. You know you're one of those brothers who you've been on it and you've been quietly doing it, and the results speak for themselves. And you spread the knowledge to your wife, so now she's getting healthier, and she's seeing your results, and she's saying, "I can't believe your numbers are better than mine." And she can see it's a direct reflection of how seriously you took the protocol. So enough respect to you. Salute to you. Keep spreading the word because we want to be able to save our people one by one. And you coming to me with chronic kidney disease, I already knew you had diabetes or high blood pressure. You were on those medications, and that was affecting you. And now you're urinating, like you say, like a horse. You don't have the swelling, you don't have any of the problems. You're feeling great. You're losing weight, and I see it in your skin. Like I could see it in your skin. Like you just look healthier than the last time I saw you, bro.
Yeah. And one of my coworkers, she said the same thing because I got her. I got her on the Hold on one second.
Oh, you got your coworker. It looked like his thing went out. Brother Red Pill, would you like to comment on what you've seen in this conversation with the diabetes kidney failure reversal?
Miraculous. The brother Alley Boy, famous rapper out of Atlanta, part of the Duct Tape Empire, Big Bank, the Trouble. These are like, street rappers out of Atlanta. He just made transition yesterday from the kidney failure.
Mm-hmm.
And he was publicly talking about the effects of lean. And he was on podcast speaking about going to dialysis 3 times a week and what the pills and the leans did to him. So once again, they saying that Atlanta's cursed. And I'm like, nah, they not cursed. They just been listening to Future and the Dope Fiend rap, you know what I mean? And Atlanta is suffering from the choices that they made over the past 20 years, 10 years, and it's still going on. You know what I mean? You got the artist Future, and I'm not using him, but he's the most significant. He's the most pedestal. He was at FIFA. You know what I'm saying? Like they had him doing FIFA songs, but he's been pushing Molly Percocets on the people and whatnot. And he's been championing the deaf culture. And I'm sure that the pharmaceutical companies like Big Pharma have a big interest in these artists. They're actually probably secretly funding them and whatnot. And like the good brother is a perfect example of what it's going to take, you know what I'm saying, in places like Memphis, like Texas, you know what I'm saying, like Atlanta. These are the lean empires, like Chicago, and now in New York, like New York, you know what I mean? Youth culture through like Black Twitter, children, you know what I'm saying, coming up, and they are being put underneath the spell, right? They're being put underneath the spell that this is the healthy way, like this is the wealthy lifestyle to have a double cup and to pop pills and whatnot. So, I'm just glad that this conversation is taking place and we have real life examples. Hopefully somebody will see these shows that are part of that lifestyle, that watch these they watch these channels in the music studios. So it's like we want to really, and we want to steer them away from the solution that we know is not a solution. You know what I mean? I don't want to go crazy on this YouTube
Right.
thing, but we want to steer them in the direction of the practitioners who literally could bring a complete turnaround, and then hopefully that could catch on the same way that the future song could catch on. But it's going too long. We losing too much talent. We losing too many people who have potential, and it's horrible to see. You know what I mean? But salute to you, salute to your solutions, salute to what you're doing and whatnot. And yeah, let's reverse the curse.
Absolutely. And I think the brother wanted to come on one more time. Yeah, brother Sean.
I got a question for you too, brother.
Yeah.
Just one thing I'm still battling with. Is the high blood pressure. You got any more recommendations? Because I know it
Yeah. What's your blood pressure numbers?
was it was up there. It was like 190 over 107.
Yeah, that's high. So what I want you to do is I want you to add the Moringa Lantro
Hey, you know
to the
what?
mix.
I got the bag.
You got the bag? Okay. Good. Start taking that. I can't hear you. We can't hear you. The mic is really, really bad, so it's really hard to hear you, bro.
Hold on. Hold on now.
So you want to take the Moringa Lantro, take a teaspoon once or twice a day with unsweetened coconut milk, and just heat up the coconut milk and put the Moringa Lantro in it, mix it, and drink it down. And then test your blood pressure in a few days, and it should be lowered.
So 1 teaspoon for the moringa.
1 teaspoon, yes, with coconut milk. It needs the coconut milk because it's a healthy fat. And you heat up the coconut milk. Make sure it's unsweetened coconut milk, and mix a teaspoon in. You can do more than a teaspoon, but at least a teaspoon in half a cup of coconut milk. Heat it up, mix it in, and then drink it down. Keep the regimen that you're doing, and we should start seeing a drop in your blood pressure. Okay?
She was trying to put me back on lisinopril.
Yeah, they want to put you back on the lisinopril. Yeah. So just try what I'm saying. Try what I'm saying first, and then right. So try what I'm saying first, and give it a week or so, and then let me know how you're doing. Hit me up on the website and just let me know if your numbers went down. If they didn't, we'll try some different approaches, because you've got the diabetes problem solved. You've got the weight problem solved because you lost 70 pounds in 7 months. Where you've got the kidney problem because you're urinating, so that's solved. And then we're going to solve the high blood pressure issue, and that'll be really the last issue you need to solve. So I think we can do with the Moringa Lantro, so that shouldn't be a problem, bro.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna start that today.
Yeah, start. So what we've noticed is that in about 80% of the people, the olive leaf extract works well in reversing high blood pressure, but there's some people who are resistant to it. In those remaining 20%, we have them take the Moringa Lantro product, and usually that solves the problem, because some people are more sensitive to the Moringa Lantro product than they are the olive leaf. Most people, the olive leaf will lower your blood pressure real nicely to a healthy level, but I found that 20% of the population respond better to the Moringa Cilantro product. So just try that, and then holler at me in about a week and let me know how you're doing. And then once we get all those numbers straight, we're going to do a testimonial that we'll put on our website, okay?
No problem.
Yeah, I'll do an interview with you. Maybe you and your wife. We could do it all together.
I told you they're still trying to. I go in a couple of weeks for another evaluation.
Okay.
Those numbers look like, but I don't know if I'm gonna get that. If I'm gonna get that order of testing. So, but we'll see. But I'm gonna do
in a couple of weeks. Just holler at me when you get your next checkup, and let me know how you doing, bro.
You don't trust me. I was scrambling this morning trying to be the first thing this morning because I talked to Brother Thurman. I saw him Friday.
Okay.
I told him that man almost broke down in tears when once I showed him,
Once you showed him your numbers, yeah. So he's referring to Brother Thurman in Richmond, Virginia, who's one of the distributors for Herbal Results. And so what Brother Sean was saying was that he spoke to the distributor and told him his numbers, and the distributor, Thurman, who's an elder, almost broke down crying seeing the reversal in his numbers. So this is great, man. And somebody writes, boy looking like a gray-haired teenager. Taking notes. Yeah, man. So Brother Sean, thanks for tuning in and giving your report. And this is for everyone listening too. Feel free to lock in with us and give us your report, how you're doing if you're taking the products and you're getting some great results. Feel free to call in and share your story with the world, because it helps everybody to get more confidence in doing the protocol and using the products to solve these problems that are quite easy to solve. So this is just a living testimonial. So my good brother Sean, we're gonna sign you off, and then we're gonna have Red Pills sign us off. And we've been on for 2 hours and 42 minutes. So I think we've given you all a lot of good content. We're going to do Wednesday is going to be a very powerful show, the Wealth Show. I'm going to be introducing to you all the black box theory. The black box is what survives when a plane crash happens. And so I have a black box approach, which is a first principles approach to solving our problems globally as Black folks. And I've started a system, and it revolves around technology and unity. You all don't want to miss it, because I'm going to have some very serious people coming on the show, talk about what we've done. I'll expose you all to a website. It's basically a spiritual, cultural system that solves the black box issue. Anything we do that does not address the limiting factors of what caused us to fall as a people and be dominated by others is a waste of time. So if we're not addressing that, we're wasting our time. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be bringing to you all Wednesday, front and center, the black box approach to solving our problems globally. And it may sound lofty, but I think that when you tune in Wednesday and you hear what I have to say and the solutions that I have in place, you all are going to see it. It'll click very quickly. And I'm going to have the people who are working with me on this approach call in. And we're going to be having a high technological show and a high, we're going to go over the stocks and, the investments as usual, but we're talking about solutions so that we as a people can be seen as the wealthiest people on earth. We should be, because our continent is the wealthiest continent on earth. The Asians have Asia, Europeans have Europe, and it just turns out that Africa is the richest continent out of all the different continents, Australia, all of that. The problem is that there's been a disconnection between the people of the continent and the resources of the continent. And we're going to address that in a very unapologetic way. If you're not about unity globally, the show will not be for you. If you're not about the advancement of our people, irrespective of natural origin, the show will not be for you. There will be no political debates. There will be no identity politics. There will be no low-hanging fruit of division. This is going to be a scientific approach to solving our problems from today moving forward. It sounds lofty. It might sound a bit exaggerated, but trust me, it's not. Tune in on Wednesday, and I'm going to go over everything with you all. I'm going to show you the website and the approach that we're going to use. We don't need 100% of our people involved. We just need a minority of people who are going to move the needle, and that's what we're going to do. So on Wednesday, be prepared for the show. It's going to be a very powerful show on Wednesday. Today, we had living testimonial of diabetes, kidney reversal, and weight loss. And we're going to be doing this every week. I actually have a couple cancer reversals that some people want to come and talk, and we're going to have them on as well. So to my brother who's looking like a gray-haired teenager, salute to you. And let me know how you're doing next week in terms of the blood pressure numbers. and also let me know how you're doing with your latest checkup, man. Proud of your results, and enough respect for you sticking with the program and getting this type of health rejuvenation that you got, man. We hope to see you live to be 100, bro.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
All right. Bless. Brother Red Pill, why don't you close us out?
Family, this has been another powerful episode of Healthy Results Mondays. As you can see, the proof is in the pudding. Please take full advantage of the opportunities that are presented before you. Health is truly wealth. It is screaming from the rooftops. I don't want to be preachy and whatnot, but we know what we know and we see what we see. Right now, the window is open. We are in an alignment that is a once in a lifetime alignment, and I want everybody to take full advantage of it. It's called Bar Boats Basket, and we talked about it on our show last night. We're going to continue to talk about it today. The window is open until the 21st. You know what I mean? So this is now time to just make changes. You know what I'm saying? Conscious changes. You don't have to do any type of miracles. You just got to get up and move, like we were talking about earlier and whatnot. Just move. You know what I mean? I'm about to go walking right now. I'm about to get out the house and just go walk. I don't know where my feet finna take me, but I'm finna walk. I'm gonna go jog. I'm gonna do some push-ups in the park. I'm gonna breathe.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And the good brother, the Goats Academy, say he just did them 40 push-ups.
Yeah,
so I'm getting my 40 in right after the show's off. I'm getting my 40 in as well.
I at least try to do 3 sets of 40. I was doing 33 to do the 100. Me and my 6-year-old son, he gets me to go do it. Like, yo, dad, let's do push-ups. But do the 40. You feel me? Do something. That's all we got to do, and I'm gonna just leave it at that. I don't want to, I'm gonna leave it at that. Health is wealth, y'all. Love and light.
Yeah, y'all. And I am going to be doing my push-ups, and I'm going to be outside planting mango trees today. And I like to show off these mangoes, man. Again, someone asked me to hold up the mango. This is called a Lancetilla. So just like when you deal with cannabis science, you have many different strains of cannabis. Well, when it comes to mangoes, there's like 1,000 different strains of mangoes. And this is a very large mango called the Lancetilla mango. And it literally is about 6 or 7 pounds. You see, I have 2 of them in my hand here. They're just as big as my head. And I'm going to have a great time eating them and planting mango trees today, man. I have this addiction to mangoes. So I'm just happy that I can eat them in a healthy way. My blood sugar doesn't get elevated because I've solved my metabolic issues. So I'm able to enjoy fruit. If you have not solved your metabolic issues, fruit is going to be a problem for you, because fruit is sucrose, which is fructose plus glucose. And the body does not care where it gets glucose from. If your body cannot properly process glucose, the glucose will be stuck in your blood. And that's why you get high blood sugar, because your insulin is not working to remove it from the blood into the cell for energy. So fix yourself metabolically. That's fasting, anti-inflammatory herbs, and certain minerals that your body needs, such as magnesium, zinc, selenium, chromium, vitamin B complex will usually solve the problem. So I look forward to y'all on Wednesday. It should be a very powerful show. And I hope that you all got value out of the information that was shared with you with Gary Brecka and Brother Sean today. I think that it was a definitely monumental show. So I'll be happy to see you all on. Yes, I do ship mangoes, but not this season, because we had a cold front. It killed 50 of my mango trees. That's why I'm always planting mango trees. I'm replanting my trees. So enough respect to the farmers. Every time there's a weather event, it sets farmers back a year, 2, 3, 4 years. And this cold event set me back about 4 years with my mango orchard, with about 50% of my trees died because of this cold front that happened, which is like once in every 100 years. So I'm replanting trees, rebuilding, and really getting in contact with neighbors who have mangoes where their mango trees weren't affected. So I'm able to still, because I live in a tropical place where people grow food. So I'm able to talk to neighbors and visit them and get different mangoes that I might not have. And so that's why you'll see the Lancetilla. I literally got this yesterday from a farmer down the street from me. He has an orchard as well, but he has the Lancetilla mango, which I don't have. So this mango will last me for probably 2-3 days to eat. And I love it. Living in the tropics has its benefits, y'all. Look into it. I advise that all of us try to live in the tropics. Yeah, every year I sell mangoes. Just this year I didn't, Brittany. Next year I will be selling mangoes again. You just go to herbalresults.net. There'll be a link for mangoes. You just click that and we ship it to you. 2-day shipment through FedEx, and you get your mangoes if you're in the continental United States. Okay. That's what we'll be doing at Herbal Results Fruit Orchard moving forward. We have papaya as well. We have avocados as well. We have plantain. We have banana. We have Barbados cherries. So we have a bunch of things, but we mainly have mangoes. We have over 50 different mango breeds and 120 mango trees on the property right now where I live. And we'll be shipping out next year, y'all. So stay tuned for that, all right? Bless up, y'all.